Okay, calling to order the regular meeting of the City Council of Palos Verdes Estates this evening at 6:33 p.m. on October 8th, 2024. Please rise and join me for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember McGowan.
Here.
Councilmember Roos.
Here.
Councilmember Kemps, absent. Mayor Pro Tem Lozey.
Here.
And Mayor Murdoch.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, moving on to approval of the agenda. Are there any changes anybody wants to make? And if not, could I please have a motion?
I move to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, Mayor's report. A couple of items I want to report out on. First is, many of you probably are aware that the city did reach a settlement agreement on the Bay Boys, Spencer, whatever name people attach to that claim. You know, this case started in 2016 and has consumed significant amounts of city time and legal fees. And rather than continue with the cycle of trials and appeals that has been going on, the city arrived at a mutually agreeable settlement with the plaintiffs. As part of that, the city will need to make some modest improvements to the Nolata Bay bluffs, including some rock seats, a couple signs deterring people from using the goat path and steering them to the south trail, a trial on the brain, a drinking fountain, kind of really more clearly delineating the walking path on the top of the bluff there. And the judge still needs to determine what the city needs to pay regarding legal fees for the plaintiff, somewhere between $1 and $4 million. That'll probably be resolved in the next 6 to 9 months is what we're guessing. If you want more details on this, it is available on the city website, and you can learn about that. The second item here is around fire safety. So about 2 months ago, there was a very small brush fire in Valmonte. The fire department determined that the cause was private vegetation. Some overgrown shrubs and bamboo had grown up into the electric wires and sparked a little fire. I do want to remind residents to please properly maintain your private vegetation, especially if it is in close proximity to electrical wires. It is your responsibility to maintain that vegetation and keep the city safe. It's not SoCal Edison's responsibility. It's private property, it's private vegetation. If you see that a neighbor's vegetation is potentially posing a risk or giving some concerns, you know, speak out. You can contact the city will investigate. So please be vigilant, and as Chief always says, I guess Valerie says it too, if you see something, say something. So that's fire safety. Did you know that every Friday, it's street sweeping day? The city contract with Athens includes street sweeping, which not only keeps our streets looking good, but reduces trash and debris from the gutters being swept into the storm drains and the surrounding oceans. And it also removes brake dust and other harmful airborne particles, which helps improve or protect air quality. The commercial areas and the aerial roads are done weekly, so every Friday they're being swept, and the remaining roads are swept on a rotating basis. For example, I live in Upper Nolata Bay, so my streets are done in I won't make the comment. Keep going, Dawn. My streets are done on the first week of the Friday of the first Friday of the month, and in Valmonte, it's the fourth Friday of the month. There's a map showing which Friday of the month your street will be swept. It's on the city website under Services/Public Works. You're going to have to kind of scroll down a bit on the page to find it, to see where in your area is being swept, but there's also a lot of useful information on that page, so you can read as you scroll. I do encourage residents to learn which day their street is being swept and to do your bit to help. Which includes moving your cars if you can, keeping them off the street. The street sweeper can't sweep if there's a car there. The other issue is trimming your vegetation so it's not spilling over the curb because they can't sweep there either. But, we can all do our bit to help keep our city clean as well as the surrounding bodies of water where stormwater empties into. City Manager, do you have a report for us, sir?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. I have a couple items. I'm going to ask in a minute our City Engineer, Steve Ariso, to update the council and the community on some work that's going to take place, but I'm going to talk about two other things. On Monday is Indigenous Peoples Day. City Hall will be closed to the public. The phones will be off, but staff will be working, and we will use that as time to maybe go through those piles on our desk and maybe try and get ahead. And I don't know if you all noticed, but the ghouls are out and the pumpkins and hay bales have arrived at our city entrances. So I don't know how they mysteriously got there, but I suspect that the foundation might have something to do with it. So we're getting into the Halloween spirit. All right, you're up. Try and follow that.
Tamika, would you be able to bring up that, that one image there, please? Yes, that one right there. Mayor, members of the council, this is in regards to work that was approved about a month ago by the council for Geosyntec to do some additional investigation behind City Hall here, basically the resistivity of the groundwater. And the reason why I'm bringing this up right now is because of the fact that there's going to be closures that are going to be needed for Tejon Place as well as Via Corta. This work will begin the week of October 21st. So we will be putting, we'll be working with the city's marketing team, I think that's correct, Trepepi Smith, to get advance notice out, and we'll be working with the PD to make sure we get letters delivered to all the businesses. Also bringing this up is because on Tejon Place, there'll be closures for 3 days during the daytime. So city staff will be needing to park at the auxiliary lot as well as possibly over at Memorial Park. There may not be enough spaces in Malaga Cove parking, so that's where we're suggesting Memorial Park. Additionally, the businesses will only be able to have people walking into Tejon Place over those day 2, day 3, and then day 4, as you see up in there. On day 4, where it's working on D prime on Via Corta, that will be in the parking lane. However, the in and out traffic coming out of Malaga Cove will be restricted. We'll have more information with the letter that goes out, as well as being published on the city's website and social media campaigns.
Will there be, some of those electronic signs out and about in advance, so people kind of know days in advance that this is happening, or what?
We can
How are
add that
people
out.
going to know?
Yeah, we can add that out too.
We're going to, yes to that, and we're going to hand deliver, working with our police department, notices to all the affected businesses over there, and we'll put out no parking signs ahead of time, so we'll do our best to get the word out.
All right, is that it for the city manager and crew?
All I have.
How about you, chief?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Mayor and honorable city council members. So I'm excited to announce a pilot program that we actually have already started in the police department. With the help of Sergeant Venegas, we have implemented this program to have our part-time police service aides conduct enforcement for municipal code violations. So this could include things such as gas leak blowers, leash law violations, illegal signs that are up, and business license infractions. So this will allow our officers to focus on higher priorities, including traffic safety concerns and criminal activity. So far, one of our PSAs, Valerie Quintana, has completed a week-long post-approved course regarding this type of enforcement. She also went on a ride-along with another non-sworn member of the Manhattan Beach Police Department who does the same type of enforcement to learn how other departments are conducting their enforcement.
If all goes as planned, she will be proactively enforcing these sections, along with responding to calls or complaints about such violations, and I do expect that it will increase the quality of life for the community in Palos Verdes Estates. There is no fiscal impact to this program. The hourly wage stays the same, and the training is within our allocated budget. And the second update, or more maybe as a reminder, but I am wearing my pink patches tonight. This is meant to spark conversations about breast cancer awareness, since October is the month for that. If the public or anybody would like to purchase these patches, they are available in our police department for $10 each, and the proceeds will be going to assist homicide detective Jackie Sipake, who is currently battling breast cancer, and she works for the Inglewood Police Department. This is all the finances is being handled through the Palos Verdes Police Officers Association, and there's no city funds that are involved. And the Palos Verdes Police Officers Association is also going to be matching the funds or the donations up to $500. And that concludes my update.
Great, thank you. Both of those awesome, and thank you so much to you and your crew, your staff, for putting in this pilot program. I think it's going to benefit everyone. I think the PSAs are going to get a lot out of it, and I think our residents are going to get a lot out of it, so I appreciate the initiative shown.
Thank you very much.
Communications from the public. Let's start with Valerie. Valerie Gorsuch.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, city staff, and residents, I'm Valerie Gorsuch. I'm the president of Palos Verdes Estates Neighborhood Watch and the area coordinator for Malaga Cove. Please save for our upcoming annual meeting scheduled for Sunday, November 17th at 1 p.m. right here in City Council chambers. We're very honored to have our city manager and our chief of police be our speakers that night, and they are going to tell us whatever we need to know about what is happening in our city. The meetings are short, they're informative, and there will be a question and answer period following. And we'll be having our raffle with prizes provided by local merchants and people who just want to give us some good stuff to give to you. And visit our Neighborhood Watch table at the Expo on October 27th. It's up at Penn High School from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., and there'll be lots of helpful information from lots of organizations, and we will have a gift to come to our table for any visitor that comes to see us. Our website has many resources on how to make your home and property safe. We're updating the content all the time, and there are tips for climate safety, emergency preparedness, and dates of our PVE Neighborhood Watch events. Visit our website at pvenw.org. And we need volunteers. We've been an organization in this city for over 40 years. We do have volunteers who are interested in crime prevention and make up our team of board members and block captains. But as we get ready for the holidays, we're looking forward for volunteers for fun events in November and December. And if you're a local student and you need to have hours of community service, we're very happy to have you help us out, and we will definitely sign that form that you need for school. If you want to get involved and you don't have our newsletter, please email us at pvenwboard, that's Palos Verdes Estates Neighborhood Watch, that's what that stands for, board, @gmail.com. And by this time, you should have maybe received your ballot. I remind you, whatever you do, please vote by November 5th. That's important for all of us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Craig Quinn. And next will be Joan Davidson.
Good evening, Mayor Murdoch, council members, staff, and neighbors. My name is Craig Quinn, and as you may know, I'm running for City Council. The purpose of my visit here is to acknowledge Councilman Jim Roos. I know that Jim's going to be moving on, and I will be traveling, and so I won't have an opportunity to acknowledge you publicly other than right now. I want to thank you for your service for the city and wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Thanks so much, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Joan Davidson. After that, it will be Lucy Padilla.
Hi. I also wanted to come tonight to thank Jim for his service. I will be talking about you later, I'm sure, in the next meeting, Jim, but thank you. We're all very sad, to be honest. I came tonight to go down memory lane with Desiree Myers. In 2017 and 2018, Des campaigned against the PVE the police safety tax, the result of which we lost $5 million. We've never been able to recoup, ever. So we've been struggling ever since. City manager, lawyer Guglielmo at the time had to tell people that Ms. Myers impersonated a City Hall employee to gain access to city records, financial records. Des wrote on Nextdoor, here's an email from the sheriffs provided to the council that states how they provide so much faster emergency response time than PVE police. They provide more patrols than PVE, and they're patrolling out of Malaga Cove, none of which is true. Des likes to talk about our high pension costs when every city has the same issue, including school districts. And the only way to stop this is through a state referendum, so we're stuck. Des sued her neighbor on Via Montemor for about 22 or 23 years, costing our city money as well as the PVHA. And I am just befuddled why Des didn't answer at the forum at La Venta Inn whether she voted yes or no on Measure D and E. Obviously, she voted no, but she wouldn't answer. We got a word salad. Former Chief Dreiling put on Nextdoor, this is the most untrue pre-election propaganda. Des's campaign slogan ought to be any means to an end. In a letter to Desiree, Tony Best, former police chief, wrote to Des's question, and he said, no, Des, I've never trusted you. So when you go to vote on November 5th, please vote for the candidates being endorsed by the PV Police POA, Greg Quinn, and Derek Lazaro, because I will be too. Thank you.
Thank you. Lucy?
Hi, thank you for having me, and Honorable Mayor and City Council. I have a background in human resources, have been in HR for over 17 years, haven't had a chance to meet your new city manager, Carrie Kelman, but I also have briefly done work here in 2019, and I've noticed some things. I know you're well-versed in budgets, so that's not even a question, but I've also noticed that you've had turnover, I think, in all your leadership departments, and that's something that I'm not sure that for you might be worth investing, or if you're doing a reorg, but I'm sure you are well aware of the cost of high turnover, and every city has, I'm sure, some sort of deficit, and that's something that every city grapples with, and I'm sure the city manager is really, has a lot of things that he's juggling. So that is just something that I've noticed, and if it warrants anything, I just wanted to comment on that. I'm sure that you have a lot of planning to do, so that was all. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the last of my cards here. Was there anybody else who wanted to comment? I should have stated at the beginning of this is for items not on the agenda. You'll have an opportunity to speak on agenda items later in the evening as we go through them. All right. Consent agenda. We have 8 items on the consent agenda. Number 1, approval of warrants. 2, receive and file financial statements for the period ending August 31, 2024. 3, City Council meeting actions. 4, Parkland Committee meeting actions. 5, 2025 PV Tennis Club budget. 6, consideration of a second amendment of professional services agreement with Trepepi Smith and Associates to provide communication services. 7, adopting a resolution to authorize submittal of applications for Measure A funds and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement. And number 8, a special event application of the Lenata Bay Homeowners Association to hold its Harvest Festival at Lenata Bay Park on October 27, 2024. Sir, Mr. City Attorney.
Madam Mayor, there's a change to the staff recommendation on item 4, and that is that items 1 and 4 on the September 12th, 2024 Parkland Committee meeting, that consideration of the council be continued to a date uncertain for those items. There is clarification that is going to be needed from the Parklands Committee about those items. It will be brought back on a consent item for them and then reported to the council at a future time.
So to clarify, you're saying that if council leaves this item on the consent agenda and we approve it, that we are just approving right now items number 2 and 3?
That's correct. I believe there's only 4 items on. Items 1 and 4, there would be no action. That would be the staff recommended action and the approval on consent.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, does anybody need to pull anything? If not, let me just ask that question first. Anybody need to pull anything? Okay. Are there any, I didn't receive any public oh, wait, I did. I do have public comment on that item that the city attorney was just speaking about. So I'm not sure who. I have Sally and Kirby Larson. Are you both speaking? Is one of you speaking? What's the plan here? Yeah, go ahead and come up to the microphone.
Good evening, Mayor Murdoch and City Council. Can we have an explanation regarding why you're pulling the number 1, which would be the street trees that were authorized to be removed on Epping Road?
We were told that was on, we received approval from the Parklands Committee, and we were told that it was on the agenda tonight to get your approval, and that no indication that something was being pulled, and why is it being pulled?
Would you like me to answer that, Madam Mayor?
Yes, one of you.
I'm happy to. What happened at that meeting, it was a technicality when the motion was read and approved by the Parklands Committee. Conditions of approval weren't specifically read into the record. So upon reviewing that, there were some items related to this removal that weren't added. So staff is not going to be recommending any change. That we just need to go back to the Parklands, get the Parklands concurrence to add on the conditions, the standard conditions of approval. Go ahead.
Yeah, it'll come back on consent. It won't be another hearing at the Parklands Committee. We brought it back consent just to clarify that the intent of the Parklands Committee was to approve it with those standard conditions of approval.
Are we, can we be privy to what the standards, the conditions of approval are?
They were in the staff report for the September 12th meeting attached there.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
So there's going to be no more discussion tonight about that? There'll be another meeting that we'll come to?
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
I still have 2 minutes. Can I say one thing?
Please.
I did not know, we did not know that Jim Roos was going to be leaving, and we're feeling a little fortunate to be here tonight so that we can at least say publicly, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for all
Thank you,
that you've
Jim.
done in the course of your job here, Planning Commission before this, and you're going to be missed. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ruth McFarlane. She's also about item number 4.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm sorry, I'm a little confused as to specifically which item on the Parklands list is actually being withdrawn. I read the agenda and it doesn't actually helpfully identify. I have a particular interest in the application relating to the Peruvian pepper trees in front of 2100 Paseo del Mar. So my question is, can I respond to that tonight, or is that one of the items which is being sent back to the Parklands Committee for whatever?
That is one of the items, but you can still speak this evening if you would like.
And then if it goes back to Parklands, whatever they adjust would come again to council.
Yes.
Again, so I could come again.
You could.
Very
You
exciting.
can come every night.
We get 2 bites at the cherry. I like that. Okay. Can I clarify how much time do I have?
You have 2 minutes left.
2 minutes left. I'm Ruth McFarlane. I live at 1909 Via Visalia. My interest in this application at Paseo del Mar is I would like to ask you to think about the context of Paseo del Mar as a whole, the whole street. It is not a street with a great number of trees. It is not richly endowed with trees. And therefore, if I ask you to be particularly thoughtful and particularly judicious in approving the removal of several trees in one location, because there are not very many trees, city trees, on Paseo del Mar, if you remove so many in one space, it has a relatively greater impact, aesthetically, environmentally, all of the kinds of things which you have heard about 1,000 times and which the Parklands Committee has taken care of. So I ask you, when you look at this application, which is to remove 4 of existing 6 trees, it reminds me that sometimes people talk about you use a hammer to crack a nut. Here, I think of a Sherman tank going through and stripping it. My concern with removing so many at once is that, in fact, you contribute to denuding irreversibly Paseo del Mar. It worries me considerably. This is for the benefit of a homeowner. I understand, I appreciate his interest, but he is not the only person. The rest of the community is also part and are persons involved. So I ask you, when you refer it back to the Parklands Committee, I ask you to have them, if they choose, to recommend to you and you approve the removal of the trees, that they be replaced in situ by trees which are more appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Monique Thorington.
Good evening, and thank you all, first of all, for the labor and the time that you put into running our city and making sure it's safe and beautiful. Last time I was here, it was, you just had abuse, and it just, so hopefully that will change, and just thank you for your service. We have become concerned recently, not recently, upset and alarmed at seeing a pattern of petitions submitted by a few residents to accommodate their desire for views. A fact that does not seem to be taken into account is that the trees and natural vegetation in question, we're speaking about the pepper trees that Ruth mentioned, for example, those trees are not on private property. They are city trees, and later on, I don't know if this is part of the thing, there's also a brush that's been proposed to be severely trimmed. Anyway, my point is there are city trees and vegetation on city land to be enjoyed by all residents and not to be compromised to accommodate the whims of a homeowner for whatever reason would like them removed. It's not their call, it's not their trees, it doesn't belong to them, it belongs to the city. These pepper trees in question are actually designated street trees. They were planted by the city at city expense, and they are thriving. They look wonderful, and you pass by and you see the yellow ribbons, which mean it's just really distressing. And the question arises, why on earth should they be removed? Why would you remove thriving city designated trees? For what reason? Especially as those homes have this unimpeded ocean. boggles me. Anyway, that's besides the point. But the same, I'm not sure if it is the same issue to be discussed here. There's natural brush in front of a house along Paseo del Mar that has bluffs across it. And then the natural bushes and vegetation are on the edge of the cliffs, which goes all along Paseo del Mar. It's part of the natural vegetation. And that house, the petitioner, the house is on the market, so it makes you wonder, why would he want the brush severely trimmed? And it doesn't make sense. Anyway, this vegetation, it's part of the natural brush. It protects the cliffs from erosion. It's the habitat for birds and rabbits, and that bluff is one of the natural places that we haven't, as humans, tinkered with and manicured.
Thank you, Monique. I'm afraid your 3 minutes is up, but thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
All righty. Any other public comment on agenda items 1 through 8? I think you already spoke. City Attorney, can somebody come back a second time and speak on the same item?
No,
Well, we're not hearing that item, so.
It's discretion of the mayor, but it's, that's, no one's entitled to an extra time after they've used their time already. So it's up to you if you want to make an exception, but the rules are that each person gets one opportunity. You don't get to come back and forth.
So next, we're not ruling on that tonight, so if you could save those comments, and then when it comes back to council, you can share them with us. All right, thank you. Anyone else on items 1 through 8 that I had referenced? Okay, if not, do I have a motion on the 8 items? And once again, reading into correction for the record, that on item number 4, the Parkland Committee meeting actions, this vote or motion is only with respect to items number 2 and 3, which are the natural habitat at the golf club and the lemonade berry bushes along the bluffs on Paseo del Mar.
So moved.
All right, so
I'll second.
Okay, so I have moved by Councilmember Roos, seconded by Councilmember McGowan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Item number 9, this is, technology freeze here. Anyway, this is about the landscape maintenance amendment number 2. Is there a staff report for this?
Yes, City Engineer Steve Lariso will be making that report.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. This staff report is for amendment number 2 with the landscape maintenance contract with Bennett. The primary objective of this amendment is to reduce the contract from approximately $1.5 million to $1.4 million, and that was accomplished through the reducing area frequencies and overlap of areas that are being done with the fire safety weed abatement contract. There was also removal of areas that were private areas and areas that were deemed part of the concession, and there was addition of areas as well that were removed from the fire safety weed abatement program and areas that were added after field reviews determined that it was needed to do this. This amendment number 2, if approved, will also change the contract to extend through the end of year, basically the end of 2025, with 2 one-year extensions that would see the beginning of a CPI in year 3. We also have Sean Bennett here in the audience. If you do have any questions, happy to answer any we could.
Thank you. Can you just clarify the term? So the way that we had the current contract reads is there are one-year extension opportunities, and each of those comes back to council. Are you seeing with the 2 one-year extensions, are those approved? Do they come back to council for approval, or are they approved by the city manager? That wasn't clear to me in the document.
The way we have it worded right now is that it was by the city manager, but that's as you are giving authority, if that can be revoked.
Okay.
And the intent of that was strictly just because we're setting in place what's happening now. We've been through almost the first year of work, so just trying to keep it rolling. That's all it was for.
So as written right now, it would be a 3-year it would be an opportunity, it would be 3 years that the city manager would just...
What you're authorizing with amendment number 2 is to go into the second year,
right,
which would be beginning January 1st, and then also at the direction or at the approval of city manager for years 3 and 4.
Okay.
One at a time, though.
With a COLA.
With a COLA.
And one other piece of clarification, in the staff report, we drafted it with the recommendation to, after tonight, with the concurrence of the council, to allow the city manager and the city attorney to finalize the fine pieces of the agreement at the end. On the advice of the city attorney, and thank you for that advice, he's recommending that tonight, wherever we end up tonight, bring it back on consent at a future meeting. Hopefully in 2 weeks, we can iron out those last pieces, whatever comes up tonight. Really, the overall intent of this is a very large contract. This is a very important contract in the city. Although I wasn't here for a year ago when all of this was put in place, we have established a working relationship with Bennett. They've been on board for close to a year. We've had probably more wins than losses, and we want to continue to work with that company on the city's landscaping. So that's really what we're trying to accomplish tonight.
Okay, thank you. So I've got a few questions. I'm going to go ahead and launch us off here. I do appreciate everyone's efforts on this. This is anyone who's looked at this contract, it's an extremely complicated contract with a lot of pieces, a lot of different frequencies, there are a lot of moving parts. And so I do thank everyone for their work. I kind of hope that at some point we're going to get to a simpler contract and kind of a management of this. We've got some good work done here, but I don't think we're quite there. So I've got my first 3 questions, Sean, are for you. So if you would please step up to the podium, that would be great.
Good evening, Mayor.
Hi, it's good to see you. How are you?
Good to see you, too. Fine, thank you.
All right. So when you started this contract, you came to council last January, and with high hopes and good expectations, and told us that you thought that you would be able to reduce the cost of the contract. And from what I can see of what's come to us tonight, the biggest reduction is in the frequency of path maintenance, which was something that council had brought up. And so my question is, what's keeping us from achieving the reductions that you had envisioned back in January? What's getting in our way?
Well, there was a little holdup on chemical applications. That would have helped us if we could have seen that, so we could have forecast better into this contract. We weren't really, we were handcuffed for the last 6 to 8 months on this. We're in our 40th week managing the contract, and you're right, it is very complex, and it takes a couple of people in our office to manage it. We've also had to implement a software that would help with the scheduling, because it does have so many different frequencies. But we have not faltered one bit. We went toe-to-toe to the merits of the contract and executed everything on time. We have not fallen behind on the schedule once. In 40 weeks, we've been right on schedule, perform the service, build the service, and we had some hiccups along the way. There was no question about that. But when you hired a new city manager and things are on the up and up now. We're having better communication over the last couple meetings on the phone. Things have gone quite well. In this contract, there's also some use of the facilities over here for storage, which will help us be more efficient and be more timely too. We want to see, private enterprise brings to the public efficiencies. Private enterprise finds ways to make it profitable, because that's the only way they stay in business. We can't give you an excuse, well, we couldn't get to it that day, or sorry, the guys didn't show up. We have to find solutions to meet the obligations of the contract. We've done that. Even though we've been handcuffed in a lot of different ways, we've done it. And it's a challenge, but I have some good people behind me and good staff, and we bought a huge amount of equipment to bring on board so we could meet it straight on. We didn't have any delays in meeting that obligation when we started. We hit the ground running.
So is your sense that the only option for us to reduce the contract is to allow, I don't know what descriptor I want to put here, but to allow pretty broad usage of chemicals? Are there other things that we are able to do?
We use chemicals very minimally in a contract that has this many acres and this many types of vegetation. So it would help if it's strategically done, not to be handcuffed, so we can do it. And then ultimately, if we could forecast that, then we could help you on the budget. I also said to the Public Works Director at that time, we would reduce green waste because we'd be able to address things quicker and not wait. So even though some locations have frequencies that aren't weekly, some are 6 times a year or sometimes 4. Those if the frequencies go longer, you get more debris because it's just that way. Things grow between frequencies.
So are you telling me that if during this past year, if there hadn't been issues around having to report out or say when you were going to use herbicides and do traffic control and all that, if you had actually been able to use them the way you wanted to, this contract coming to us today would be less than it is?
Very possibly, yes.
Okay.
Very possibly.
Okay. My other question is, the contract includes gopher control.
That's correct.
And I look around the PV Drive West median and other city open space, and I see mound after mound after mound. I see it on the flat surface. I see it spilling over the curbs, so now Athens won't sweep the streets there. It looks like polka dot paper. There are sections of where I live by PV Drive West where it's like every foot there's another mound. So what are you doing to address the gopher problem? It's part of the contract, it's part of the unit price, but as a resident, I'm not seeing any improvements. I see new mounds every day. So how do we address this gopher issue, and what can you do to be compliant with the contract?
Well, I have to say that as we started this contract, weeds were extremely high and they were out of control, and there was a lot of deferred maintenance. Mm-hmm. When you get an infestation, it takes a while to get things under control. It's a chemical-free in that regard. They won't allow us to use restricted chemicals, and there is a gas that's available for open spaces such as those, but it isn't acceptable. The other methods are very slow in reacting, and that's probably why it's taking us a long time to get it under control.
Well, so what I'm hearing from you is you have only so many tools that you can apply, and they're not very effective. I'm trying to figure out what are we going to do to control the gopher problem, and I'm not really. Unless I'm mishearing, I didn't really hear an answer. I heard
we use CO2.
This isn't effective.
CO2 is used, and it's piped down into the holes. We try to find active tunnels, and that's how that's done. We go from hole to hole of trying to find the pest that's creating those mounds. And a lot of those mounds, you have to find the most current one, because you can pipe it in, but if it's not an active one, it's a hit and miss.
So if we have, and I'm just going to speak about the PV Drive West medians because those are the ones that I walk on a regular basis. So if those get maintained every 2 months from a kind of weed control standpoint, is that when the gopher control's happening, and is that an effective way? I mean, if it's every 2 months, I don't know what the gestation period of gophers is, how often they're multiplying, but do we need to is there a different approach we should be taking regarding the gophers?
What we've done is treat them when we see them. When we're working there, after a mow is the easiest time to locate the most active ones, and that's when we go out and treat, when we see the active holes.
So Steve, what percentage of the contract is the gopher work?
It's not a percentage, it's built into the unit cost, so it's supposed to, anytime they maintain someplace, they're also supposed to be.
So it's not an addition, that's what I was looking for.
No,
the
it's
unit
not.
It's not an additional unit cost? So the unit cost of a parcel includes the.
Gopher and
okay.
DG work.
Okay. Well, same concept is that if we're not getting the gopher work, then the unit cost should go down.
Exactly. Okay, and then my other question, keeping with the theme of PV Drive West, is...
You're going to keep with the theme of gophers.
No,
we're moving on from gophers.
Moving on. I'll leave that one for Jim if he wants to continue it. So I'm interested in your thoughts on whether we are doing, whether way we structured the work for the PV Drive West medians is optimal for controlling it, for staffing it, and all of that. I see mostly weed whackers are being used, and it's a pretty flat area. You talked about buying a lot of equipment. I'm curious why, it doesn't seem like mowers are being used, or, I'm not the expert, but it's just interesting to me. Are weed whackers the best tool for us to be using for this? It's pretty labor intensive.
It depends what the issue or the locations are. Those are used for tighter areas typically.
Okay. So my other question is, the medians get maintained every two months, which seems to be maybe not quite frequent enough January through June, and seems too frequent July through December, right? So, September, October, November, there's not really a lot growing up in the medians. This goes back to the question of, is there a better way for us to structure the work so that, it's more even workflow or something? There was a crew out, I don't know, a week or two ago, and, they were out there, but it just didn't seem like there weren't any weeds for them to do. And so as we think about how to continue to evolve and simplify and create value in the contract, you don't have to have the answer now, but I pose the question of, is there a better way to handle how we're doing these medians, which, city spends you spend a significant amount of resources, and we spend a significant amount of resources on. So I won't make you answer that, but I just want to put that out there because, okay. That was my 3 questions for you.
Well, I look forward to working with Public Works to answering any of your in-depth questions if we can outline them and I can delve into them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Steve, this question's for you. It's something that we talked about before the meeting, but I think it would be helpful for everyone to hear about. So back in May, Council had a lengthy discussion about the responsibility of maintaining the right-of-ways, and we had discussed the importance of consistency in our service with respect to residents and not maintaining some and while maintaining others. And council had provided direction to return with some options about what do we do about that. And, you know, I think like 11 right-of-ways had been identified. I know one has been pulled out because it's, you know, the golf club's concession agreement says they need to do it. I see that those right-of-ways are still in this contract. What is staff's plan with respect to kind of resolving this question that has been around for a while?
So there's a couple questions in there, I think, not just one, but I'm gonna take one at a time.
Okay.
So the areas of the right-of-way that you were talking about, yes, we've identified those areas. We have provided them to Bennett Landscaping, and the intent is that we may identify areas over time that we may need to end up reducing. Areas are not correct. I mean, we did analyze this again, but we will continue working with the contractor to make sure that all the information is correct. So that's the first part. The second part is going back to the initial part, was requesting information to be brought back to council by staff. And there was 3 requests that were made back in May, was to come back to council with an amendment to the code because the code currently states that landscaping areas that are adjacent to properties shall be maintained by the property owners. And so the question by council at that point was, do we bring in an amendment back to the contract to take those out, or to have the residents do them themselves? And I'm sorry, I have my notes here and I lost that all of a sudden. I had the 3 items on there. Staff to come back with options, make a change to the code, which this is in particular 12.16.060. I know it's a number, it's just something that sticks in my head. Adopt a policy to do what to do with those locations, and the other one would be to make a change to the landscape contract to determine whether or not those areas will be kept in or not.
So is there a timeline for when you plan to come back to council with options for how we should be dealing with this inconsistency in our practice and code?
Well, to answer some of the information there was the cost was, to do that work was about $35,000 within the contract. Adopting a policy, we could come back and discuss if council would like to have a policy that would implement the requirement, or basically implementing the code itself, but then there would be the code issues, code compliance and working with the residents. And then we could also provide a letter that would go out to basically the residents to remind them of their responsibilities.
Okay, so I think when we were talking in the back, we talked about that potentially coming back to us at the next council meeting, kind of what the options are.
Yeah.
I mean, the policy's really only needed if we decide that we're going to keep the existing code and decide to not follow it.
Correct.
Okay. Harry, did you want to weigh in?
I do, and I just, given the state of our Public Works Department right now, I'm going to give Stephen out right now. Sorry, Mayor. Can you do that in 2 weeks? Or would you like to do that in 4 weeks?
You said 2 weeks.
Well, that was in there.
Oh, that was in
now
there, but out
I'm
here it's
watching this guy
different.
bounce around and yell numbers at you.
I was just using your number.
No, I know. That's why I'm asking.
And you add to that all the competing priorities that he's being asked to deal with.
I appreciate that. I'm just asking for resolution of something that we'd opened 5 months ago.
I would prefer it,
a month.
Yeah, I would prefer it to be not this next meeting.
Okay.
And it would just be the discussion of these 3 items specifically for that. It doesn't necessarily change what's going on with the contract at this point, but at least to present the information.
Okay.
So right now, the right-of-ways they're in the contract, correct?
Yes.
With the exception of the golf course.
Correct, which I see they fixed that.
Okay. So keeping with the right-of-ways, one of the things I noticed in the contract is a number of the right-of-ways, we changed the frequency from 3 times a week to 2 times a week. 3 times a year to 2 times a year. And the total cost, so we decreased frequency and the total cost went up 2.2%. So I guess what I'm wondering is, why would the city agree to a reduction in service for a higher cost? Why wouldn't we just keep the frequency what it was at the old pricing?
The reduction in frequency was due to eliminating a portion that was being done by FSWA, or the Fire Safety Weed Abatement Program. During the negotiations of the revision to areas, because there was less work, it's the cost benefit of doing only 2 times a year versus the 3 times. That's where the numbers came from. What we also did, though, was when we were working the amendment out with Bennett, the rates that we had identified were basically what was in the original contract. And those rates were identified to be too low by the contractor. They came back with revised rates, and we ended up negotiating basically to be meeting halfway in between for the square footage costs for all those revisions.
So we had a contract with a vendor that was for 1 year with the potential for, I think it was 6 one-year
Yes.
extensions. And that contract stated no price change for the first 3 years.
Correct.
And so in year 2, we're changing the prices?
On the areas that we changed frequencies.
So couldn't we just go back to the 3 times a year and get better service for the same, actually 2% less cost?
Essentially, yes.
Okay. I'd like to understand, so the path maintenance schedule. There were a lot of changes here, so thank you guys for wrestling with that. We've got a lot of paths. They get used different frequencies. They're in different locations. They're in different states. So I appreciate that. So many of the paths were reduced from 12 to 3 times a year, which makes sense, you know, if it's a path being used. So great job there. Some of the paths have been decreased to 0. Do you know why some of those were reduced to 0?
I'm just trying to pull those areas up so I know exactly where. I'll come back to that if you don't mind.
Okay, that's fine. And then some paths have been reduced to 3 times a year, but they're not paths anybody's ever going to walk on. So it's, I mean, I can see doing it once a year for fire, kind of weed abatement, safety stuff, but like there's a path that goes from Via Del Monte to Via Somonte. It drops like 3 stories. I mean, you have to slide down there. I don't know how you guys are even going to do it, Sean, but it seems weird that we have these paths that don't exist, that nobody's ever going to walk on, and we're going to maintain them 3 times a year. So it seems like, I think great strides have been made on the paths. I think there's an opportunity to revisit some of these and say, is this a walking path, or is this a fire abatement once a year safety clearance? And look at that. And so, you know, that's just something I would suggest as you're kind of continuing to evolve this. And my understanding is that some of the paths that were listed, the prices were incorrect. I think that's what the email stated. And so I'm assuming those, like PT 91, 93, 102, that those costs will be updated in what comes to us next?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, those areas there was those 4 you identified in email, and then there was a total, I think, of 6.
Yeah, it was worth like $33,000 or something across them. So those will be, and then maybe if there could just be a little bit more fine-tuning of paths that nobody's ever going to walk on, and it all adds up. The other thing on the paths, and I don't know how council feels about this, so I walked a lot of these paths. I do a lot of walking in the city. And I would say that the majority of these paths, the work that Sean and that his guys and that BATS have to do is clearing encroaching vegetation from the neighboring properties. And so I don't know how to deal with that. It's either trees that are coming over, or it's things that people have planted to create privacy in their yards. And so it just doesn't make sense to me why the residents of this city should be paying to have a contractor come in and clear people's encroachments. I get it, it's a longer-term issue, we can't deal with it right now, but we've got to address this because it just doesn't make sense to me. You know, one of them, and I'm not going to single out people, but it's an ongoing problem, and so we hire, and a significant part of our costs are these trimming of people's vegetation because they're not taking care of their trees. If this were somebody's house and somebody's tree was growing over into somebody else's yard, they'd be like, Joe, you need to trim that. So I don't know why we are any different, and we go ahead and trim it ourselves. I get it, code enforcement is overloaded, we've got a lot going on, but at some point, we just gotta make people responsible for their own stuff.
Mayor, can I respond to your question you had earlier about the PT areas, the paths? The reason why we dropped those to 0 was because of the encroachments, basically what you were talking about there. And as you said, there wasn't any purpose to clean those or maintain those areas until the encroachments were addressed.
Okay.
And then we could address by adding those areas back in at a later time, if needed.
But I know there's one on Espinoza Circle. It's somebody's ficus hedge that's totally grown in. So the gardener went and trimmed some of the ficus hedges back when bats had to come in, and then they just left all the debris there. I'm walking and I'm seeing people have empty buckets and pieces of wood, and I was walking along the alley that goes between Paseo Del Mar and Chelsea this morning, and people are like just cutting stuff down and just leaving it there. I mean, talk about a fire hazard, but the city shouldn't be responsible for cleaning that up. It's just my point on that. Okay, one last question. The original contract said no price changes, and now we're talking about a CPI in year 3. I'm just trying to figure out why we would do that.
This was all part of the negotiation process by reducing frequencies in areas and adding areas. It was a long, lengthy process that we went through, starting back, I want to say back in May, no, even earlier than that. Just going through the whole process of adding, reducing, and removing areas.
And at the end of the day, we're kind of almost at the same number, so I'm not sure what the benefit to the city was on this, but.
Understood.
Other questions?
Not yet.
Jim, Dave?
No.
Okay, I did not receive any slips for public comment on this. Is there anybody who wants to speak on this matter? No, let's bring it back to council then for discussion.
Well, I appreciate the points that you brought up, and I appreciate Bennett. I know this has been a slog, I'm sure, for the last year. So, and things do look better, for sure. Has anybody else been watching for when the Farmer's Almanac's going to come out and say how much it's going to rain this year? And I'm like, no.
It's supposed to be El Nino. It's supposed to be drier. We'll see.
Yes. I mean, I don't have an issue with approving for a year. I guess I'm struggling with we're going to set this. Actually, and the online staff report has a different number from this hard copy staff report. So just to clarify, the online staff report says $1,417,223, but this hard copy says $1,423,224. So when you bring it back, obviously, clean that up. But I probably don't have an issue extending for a year. I guess I have an issue with just kind of talking this through, setting that $1,420,000, whatever it is, as the baseline, and then say, okay, yep, and then we're going to, we're just going to increase that number from there. Because I don't know, it's like a constant work in progress, right? So I guess, but then again, we'll probably be constantly battling with these numbers. I guess I just don't want to set that $1,420,000 as a baseline and then make it seem like a guarantee that we're always just going to increase from that number, because I think we always are interested in tightening that number. So,
See, that's what I worry about. I worry about, we approved 1.5 last year, we approved 1.4 this year. If we ever wanted to go out to RFP, why would anyone ever bid below that? Because we've already told everyone what we're willing to pay.
I just, I think our expectation and staff's expectation for themselves was that you're always going to be fine tuning this, right, Mr. Bennett? I mean, right, because we've gone to, 3 times a year on some places, and then, 9 months from now, we're going to say, oh my God, that's not going to work. So you got to add that back in. And then went more often, say, we don't need that, and it has a lot to do with how much it rains this winter. So can we put the 1-year extension, but then I don't want the city manager to always have to come back to extend the contract, but can we do something with that point number 3, maybe, and not say CPI just as negotiated instead of putting a number on it? Maybe authorize the city manager to extend the contract for additional 2 1-year extensions at a mutually agreed upon value. I don't know. I'm struggling with just throwing an automatic CPI on there. I don't like it, that part. That's just me, though.
Yeah, I hear what you're trying to do, and I definitely...
Do you have a suggestion?
Not yet.
Oh.
But I appreciate it, because here's what I'm looking at is, and Trevor taught me this today, I don't want to put myself in a position to extend a contract based on something that we negotiate.
Kind of.
To then have the council rightfully look at it and go, that's not what we like. So I think that's what the intent of the CPI was, so that it's sort of codified and we're not guessing. I guess the alternative is to have to come back each year on that extension.
But then there's no, my first question to Sean was, how do we reduce the cost here? Because there was an expectation it would come in less, and it hasn't. And then are we then setting, we're just going to take 1.4 million and we're going to add 3%? Is there any opportunity for those decreases down the road if the herbicides or something?
Well, that's
locked in.
No, right, and it's that's the challenge.
I feel like this conversation probably does need to happen once a year.
Well,
or no, is that what you're trying to?
No, not necessarily. I was lending myself towards that. I think what the intent of staff was to not spend an incredible amount of time constantly having to go back and forth with Bennett Landscaping on all of these items. And I think Bennett Landscaping probably feels the same way.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get to the point where we can foster that relationship in a positive space by putting these things to bed. So what I'm thinking is, based on all the questions that we just heard, that we sit down one more time and we walk through them and we make sure we get them answered. We'll bring answers back to the council. And I'm thinking that as it relates to, maybe the city attorney, not tonight, can help me with language on how to extend the contract that's by council based on certain factors, like we didn't make any significant changes, or you see what I mean? Like, just tighten up that language so it's not an automatic, but it's not going to require 6 months of staff work.
Yeah.
That. So I can't on the fly come up with that.
Okay.
But I understand the intent.
Okay, thank you.
And I think
That's my issue.
I think you understand our intent.
Well, I would think the hardest renegotiation was the first year. I wouldn't think you guys are going to have to go back to the table on every single line item every single year.
I'd like to make a comment or two. I mean, we hire a city manager and a public works interim, albeit he's in interim at the moment. We directed them to go review the 2 contracts with the weed abatement and the landscaping, and to find overlaps and negotiate and work out a strategy. I don't believe it's the council's role to second-guess every negotiation back and forth with a vendor, because vendors are scarce commodities. And I don't want to see this community not have vendor opportunities going forward. We've entrusted Kerry with negotiating a contract with the assistance of the team that he's assembled. And I think we need to rely upon that and let them, they've come to us with their best effort. And we can't take the time every year to have this kind of discussion, 2 or 3 meetings about whether we do this or that in a landscape contract. We've got so many other contracts and other obligations and long-range fiscal problems that are facing this community that we've got to put our focus on. And this is, to me, I put my trust and faith in the man we hired for this job, and I think we let him do his job.
I think you're right, David. We don't want to be renegotiating this every year. That's why, for me, let's get it right this time.
Well, I think they've got it right. That's the point.
David, well, you're wrong. There's errors in it.
Well, I think you're wrong, Dawn.
Okay, well, there are errors in it. We just got an email today showing that there were errors.
There's going to be errors in everything that we look at in a minuscule perspective. But we've got to look at and keep the focus on where our time is best spent and trying to help the community work our way out of the dilemma that we have.
Well, I think yours is a fair point, but we do want the city manager to be able to extend these contracts. I think if we can put, extend for additional 2 one-year extensions as negotiated.
Well, I think
let him negotiate it. That's fine.
Didn't he just indicate that they negotiated the COLA as part of this arrangement that was brought for us tonight? That's part of the negotiation.
Well, I don't like that.
What?
I didn't like that. That's my.
Well, I know you don't like it.
I wouldn't assign a value to it. My only issue, whether or not it's COLA, a CPI, whatever, I just don't like assigning a value to it because.
Well, I
know you're getting a raise. What's your incentive to?
Well, the COLA, given what's happening in the inflationary environment that we're in right now, would be normally expected in my mind.
Okay.
I would recommend just giving clarity to the city manager, whichever way you want to go on this. So I would say if you want to give him the discretion to say that the agreement is extended, can be extended by the city manager if he is satisfied with the work performed. You can also, if you want to have a report back to the council before he exercises the option, you could also put that in there. I would not include a negotiation about the COLA. If you want to, I would either direct him not to include a COLA or include a COLA if you think if the city manager evaluates the work to be above average or exceptional or whatever standard you want to put in place. But I would want to have specifics about how much the city manager is allowed to spend and if he has control of exercising the option or not. I think the council should be clear about those 2 items.
Okay.
How do we put that language in then in a motion to make it viable? Maybe not
Barry
tonight.
said he was going to bring it back anyway, right?
It's going to come back on consent.
Coming back anyway.
So if you just give direction about whether you want him to control the option, whether you want a report before the option is exercised, and whether you want to either include a COLA or have the city manager be able to grant a COLA if he's whatever standard you want to put in place about his satisfaction or being.
I just want to see us empower the city manager to make the necessary decisions and report back to us, and also work with our vendors to make sure that they're partners and not enemies.
You got that, city manager? Please, everybody, when you come back, please.
Well, I do got that. And I appreciate the discussion. Do you all got that? Do you guys all agree with what David wants? No. So I don't want to get it if it's not what everyone wants. So I don't know how to get us there. Right? So I think what the plan is as we stand here today is per Trevor is, do you want the contract to come back with I can exercise the authority to extend it? That's option 1. Option 2 is, do you want to have a report that I'm going to extend it? And option 3 is, do you want to assign a COLA? My commercial on the COLA is very simple. It allows both the city and the contractor to know where things are going. We can budget for it. They can understand where it's going. We'll know what that is. It's pretty standard in a lot of these contracts that it is. It might be X one year, it might be Y the next. From my experience, it's relatively standard to have the COLA in something, a long-term agreement like this.
Is it possible for the contract to go down, though, if you do that? I mean, I think about the work that Sean did in Rolling Hills Estates, and he actually had a contract, I forget if it was 3 or 5 years, where each year was lower. So my question with the CPI is, are we locking ourselves in at whatever we do this year and only going up? Is there opportunity?
So that's one of the notes I wrote is to work with Sean on figuring that out. And I don't know. I mean, you brought up a lot of great questions on why did we reduce, and we've had the conversation, and when I sat with Sean, it made sense to me. And now you're saying why did we reduce, and it costs more. It doesn't make sense to me. So we need to go back and clarify those answers. I think that you need to have a commitment from the staff and Bennett to constantly look at this contract. I will give deference to Sean. He's been trying to do that.
Okay.
Okay. Might have yelled at me a few times, right? Come on, you can admit it, right? Okay. And quite frankly, and you know, it's a broken record. It's to all of your point, there's been a lot of turnover. So I don't know what work was done with the previous public works director to that date. But Sean has tried to reduce this, and we will continue to work. Derek came on, did a great job getting us pretty far. In fact, you sent a text to me the other day. Wow, we got a lot done pretty quickly. So I think the commitment's there. I think this is our second largest contract behind fire. I think it represents a huge part of the city. I think it's a high priority for us. But we want the ability to not spend a lot of time on this. So we have some more work to do, but I feel like we're getting a lot closer to moving forward on this.
Go ahead, Sean.
Come on up.
I respect your control of the purse strings. I do respect that. And we can work that way. But don't forget, 8 months ago, I could have set up a system in place that I could have drilled it down, if I hadn't had my hands handcuffed. So if we have another term at this, with the options that I've suggested, I can come back, because we are keeping track of the time elements for every area. But you can't change essentially the scope and the performance of our work and expect you're going to get discounts this next year. It's unfortunate. But I harped that it needed to be dealt with, and it was put off because of all the turnover and everything else.
What elements are you referring to?
Excuse me?
Which elements are you referring to?
Herbicides.
The
herbicides.
Applications.
Okay, I wanted to ask that question of staff. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I mean, what is the current state of the use of herbicides? And you can answer that too if you'd like.
Well, we've stopped using herbicides for a long time.
Okay.
Yes.
So I will say, and this was important to me, I don't know that my colleagues, I can't speak for everyone here, but I felt that was an important part of trying to manage the cost here. I had felt, there was a decision made before I was on the council to eliminate the use of herbicides in contracts with prior vendors. I think it resulted in, that's an unusual thing. It's the kind of thing that politically, reflexively, people are like, of course we don't want to use herbicides. And people say that not realizing that the only reason their lawn looks the way it does is because their gardener uses herbicides. It's just not possible to maintain this amount of space and not use herbicides, at least in certain locations. So that's a problem. And I do recall when that there was the herbicides, they got direction to stop using them, and I didn't follow up on how that ended, but I don't blame him for coming back here with a contract that looks almost exactly the same dollar for dollar. If he's you cannot 20% of 5 square miles, you cannot do it pulling weeds by hand. Doesn't work. So,
Now, this new contract, though, or the amendment, has you using herbicides. I think the issue was posting, noticing, traffic control.
no, but it's more than that. For the vendor, the question is, can I count on being able to do this reliably? If I'm going to start doing it again, and then they're going to turn around and the city staff is going to react to a couple of posts on Nextdoor, and then we can't do it. It's like he can't count on being able to do it, and we have to. It is, I don't know why it's a controversial thing. We are probably the only city in any direction for 40 miles that ever thought that it was a good idea to try to do landscape maintenance without any use of herbicides. It's just not done because you would cost $10 million.
I can't agree with Jim more. I mean, this is something we made a mistake a number of years ago when we put that restriction on the ballot. And I remember, I think I was on the council at the time, and it was a very split and contentious debate.
Well, we take it very seriously. I spray the same chemicals I expect my employees to do with the same PPE that they're supposed to be using. And we worked diligently during this period of cessation that we came back with a whole step-by-step process so that they could be relieved. We've also added into the contract, which you may not realize, is that we're going to actually field all the inquiries from the public. They might get the call to City Hall, but then they'll be given our phone number, and one person will be responsible to take that in log, and we'll report back on that. But you can't expect to get a consensus from everybody. That's not possible. And you're doing the best thing as you can. As my responsibility to the public and to my employees is to do it all safely. And that's what we are going to do. So I think if we've given this opportunity, and I think I can work well with your city manager in finding these reductions. Like I just said, I asked that we could reduce our green waste. That was gone once we stopped using the herbicides. I want safety out there. We've actually broken several windows on cars because we're weed eating, and we shouldn't be weed eating in certain areas. We want to get the tolerance down so low that we hit rock. We hit rock, and it's a trajectory. It's not safe for the public. It's not safe for the cars. You just let me do my job, and I will report like I've done to you before over the last 40 weeks or whatever, 40 weeks, and come back to you. And you can say, hey, where can we do? And I will find those places because I hear you, and I can see, and you're astute at some of these callings, that there's some areas, but I've got to figure 12 months, not just one frequency. I've got to figure those frequencies and find a solution to that unit price that solves everything. And that's hard to do. And the history is what we're building here if you don't change the direction. The direction was when I signed the contract, not changing it 4 months into it. That was a poor decision to stop me.
You're talking about the herbicides again.
Exactly.
Right. But no, I support the herbicides. I mean, you can buy it at Costco.
Everybody uses it. Your golf course uses it.
Right. And what I do,
Conservancy uses it.
What I do appreciate about you, Sean, so I do think there's kind of a communication that's needed in terms of that. But one of the things I appreciate, you and I have had a number of conversations, Sean, and you have ideas on what we can do. You talk about mulching, you talk about other things. So I do think that if we can get that synergy and that relationship tightened up, I do think there's a real potential here. So I do appreciate that you're always thinking and always trying to think about it. And
this is private business brings us to the public.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect it coming the other way. It's going to come from us to you.
Well, you're the expert. We expect that.
If we're listening and we cooperate and we work together, yeah, we can do so much. And I should make a public announcement here in that Carl Moritz, your forester, has 15 trees slated for planting in about 2 weeks, and he's looking for new areas in the city. So, but he wants the homeowners to call if they want a tree in front of their place. So I think we should put that out there, because I'm only planning right now 15, and your line item budget was, could pay for a lot more trees.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully
We
that
want your
could go
city
in
to be
our
beautiful.
update. Okay, any other comments here? Okay, so do you have what you need from us? Kind of, yes? Okay, what do you need clarification on?
Are you on agreement? Well, I guess, would you like, is there agreement on when the contract comes back, it's written in such a way that I can extend the contract?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes? Is that a yes?
Depends on how you
Yeah,
write
it's
it.
like, what's the next sentence?
It's a very weak yes.
Well, there's another
Well, I
sentence
think it's
coming
done.
clearly.
Then we're done. And then I'm going to come up, I'm going to bring back a new concept, working with Sean. Where'd he go? I'm figuring out how to apply a CPI, some way to do it. And
Okay.
we just need to talk about it.
Okay.
I just
And
can't-
then we'll kind of address some of these.
And I think I got most of your questions, but we'll make that part of our meeting.
Okay. All right,
Okay?
perfect. Great.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Sean. All right, agenda item number 10.
Okay.
I guess that's you, Carrie.
Yeah, give me one sec to get ready. Okay. Agenda item number 10 is consideration of proposed approval of resolutions between, it's our non-represented staff, our non-union staff, and the categories are professional and supervisory, management administration, and sworn police management groups. In addition, consideration of a deputy city manager position. So I'll start with the resolutions first. Following the process of negotiating with our two represented groups, staff began working with the non-represented groups as their resolutions that sort of dictated how they're paid and holidays and compensation and benefits had expired. So I'm going to, for the council and the public, I'm going to highlight the proposed changes. The first one is the professional, supervisory, and management administration. These are civilian employees that work in City Hall will receive a 7% COLA increase. This is commensurate with what their counterparts, civilian, City Hall represented union employees. The police management would get a COLA increase of 10%. That's our two captains. And then for our chief of police, it would be a 5% COLA. And the reason for that is the chief just became the chief in the recent time frame. So the council and staff felt, or city manager felt, that 5% was more appropriate. It's not a reflection of the excellent job that you're doing, chief. Another area that staff is recommending, I can't believe I'm saying this straight face to you, Victoria, is an annual COLA increase. It's a change from the way that staff salary adjustments were made. So the proposal is to do an annual COLA on the anniversary of the person's hire date after the review. They get a COLA increase not to exceed 3% based on, I believe we wrote into the March CPI. And I could go to the staff report and read the one, but it's in the staff report. Cap of 3. In addition, I'm requesting that a merit increase of 0 to 2% based on satisfactory or above performance. That would be part of that review, and that would be at the discretion of the supervisor and signed off by me as the city manager. Other items is health insurance. We made an adjustment of about $100 a month in the health insurance stipend. Sick leave, we modified to conform with the California government labor codes. These are all things that were done for our two represented groups. The 410 work schedule was memorialized. The final piece on that I'm recommending is that this MOU is good for 4 years. Again, similar to what we just talked about, we want to start moving on from these items and just lock things in so we can know and we can plan and not revisit every year. So I'm not promising it won't come back, but I'm saying it's the intent of to keep this in play for the next 4 years. Two other items that I just want to, 3 items that I want to address on that, and we can have a discussion that came up since the posting of this agenda. These positions get a option of a city-issued cell phone, some of the positions, or a $60 stipend towards that, using your personal cell phone. As of now, nobody takes the $60 stipend, they take the cell phone. It was suggested that maybe we consider removing that, which we certainly can, if you'd like. And I have no history on how we got here, but for whatever reason, all the 2 represented groups and the 2 civilian groups that are not represented all have their sick hours capped at 1,000 hours. I don't know why, but the police management does not have that. I even asked the chief, and he has no idea why. It was suggested that we, for consistency's sake, cap that at 1,000. I don't see necessarily a problem with that. That's quite a bit of days of work. So that covers that. I guess I'll stop there and see if you have any questions on what we've talked about to date.
You had stated that the COLA was going to be applied at the...
I said 3 and I didn't get to the 3rd.
Well, no, you said it was going to be applied at their anniversary
Did I miss-
date, and actually it's July 1st.
Is it July 1st? I apologize.
that's
The
okay.
mayor, I think the mayor will do it with their reviews, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I misspoke. The 3rd item, and I need to address it, came up, is staff has suggested in the resolutions that this COLA, the 7 and/or 10% would be retroactive to July 1st. There's been some questions and comments that we've done that in the past. I'll leave that to the council's discretion, direction to me on how, if you approve this, how you would like to handle that.
Ooh, we don't usually do retro.
I don't know that we've ever done it. That's why the POA started last November. Okay. All right, is that it for your report, sir?
Well, no, then I was going to, is there questions on that? Because then it's a related but separate item that I want to discuss. Any questions on what we talked about so far?
No.
Okay. The other item that's related to this, and the timing's weird because we have to add it into these resolutions, is the creation of a deputy city manager position. As part of the budget process, the council authorized 2 positions, 1 new position, and extended a position. The first was the management analyst, which hasn't been filled, I don't think, since December, possibly. They created an assistant to the city manager position. Based on a lot of factors and needs, I am requesting the creation of a deputy city manager position. This would replace the assistant to the city manager unfilled position and replace for this year the management analyst. When I say this year, I'm just reserving the right to bring the discussion back as part of the budget. One of the reasons I'm comfortable removing that position is, as we laid out this year's staffing plan, that management analyst was going to spend a lot of time, they were going to be kind of public works focused. We don't have a public works director. We're about to start a recruitment of a public works director, and I didn't really feel like hiring somebody to work for somebody else made any sense. Depending on what that hopefully new public works director comes back with and how the budget looks, we may or may not request that position again. So the last piece is the alignment of the salary ranges. There was a request to look at the salary ranges and raise them up or align them. What we've done instead is we've extended out the top end of the, this is for the directors, the community development director and the public works director by 50%. It's a practice that some cities use it nearby. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to hire at the top of those ranges, but it allows for specifically the public works director, hopefully a little more competitive recruitment. Our finance director was moved up with the same intent. We haven't landed a finance director, but getting that extra money might bring in more talent. So those are sort of an overview of the changes. I'm happy to answer questions, specific questions, if you have them.
When you say that the creation of the deputy city manager kind of replaces the management analyst and the assistant to the city manager.
Yes.
For the reasons you said, and you said for this year, but, and so you kind of, you said, I reserve the right to come back during budget season and re-request those, but did you mean just re-request the management analyst?
Yes.
Or are you,
Yes.
the management
I
analyst
don't
and the assistant?
No. I don't envision re-requesting the assistant to the city manager. But the one I was speaking of was the management analyst.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I reserve the right to ask for anything.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I guess one point, just this really super small point, backtracking a little bit on the other resolution. When you talked about the cell phone kind of allowance to use a personal cell phone versus a city-issued phone, it just seems like the world is more, I know nobody wants to carry two cell phones, but that's just the reality of the world. And I think we don't want our managers doing anything on a personal cell phone, right? I mean, don't we just want to issue?
I think so.
I think that just is so much more prudent. I think it's just a big mistake to let people use their personal, so that's a little teeny thing, but
update that.
I would just say, look, if manager, anywhere any of us works, your employer hands you a cell phone, and that's the one you're going to use for work, so these days.
Mayor Pro Tem Lozzi, what's interesting about that? I'm sorry. This is the first time I've carried two cell phones, and you're right.
It's a pain in the neck,
But you know what's nice about it? If you don't want to worry about work for a little bit, you can just carry your personal cell phone, and you can just kind of take a little mental break on a weekend. So
kind of keeps things separate.
There's an advantage.
I don't know. So that's just a teeny little point, but that'd be my suggestion there.
Is that it for your questions?
For now. Yep.
Could you, kind of explain for us and the public how you arrived at the salary range for the deputy city manager? I believe it tops out at $210K, and, I look at some of the other cities, and it seems a bit high. Hermosa Beach tops out at $177. Rolling Hills Estates Assistant City Manager, who has significant experience, is making $193. So how did you arrive at this range?
the range was based on looking at those numbers and seeing what I thought would be competitive and who I thought we could get. We had the numbers for Rolling Hills Estates. They had from my notes, they have a assistant city manager. Rancho Palos Verdes has a deputy city manager that, from my notes, tops out at 18,118 times 12, 217. We looked at San Marino, they don't have it, but they have a HR director that tops out at around 200, I think.
Okay.
Redondo, their assistant city manager tops out at 23,000 a year.
Well, it's Redondo. They're a lot bigger.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you know what, it's a constant. We're constantly hearing how hard it is to recruit people, so we wanted to bring a competitive number so that we can get somebody good in here to provide assistance and, leadership for the staff, and allow me to free me up for other items of importance.
What is your plan for filling the position?
We're going to do recruitment. The specifics of the recruitment have not been determined yet, but we will do, following the personnel, we'll do some form of a recruitment.
Okay.
I've had interest already.
Any other questions? Public comment. Anybody in the public there have some questions they want to bring up on this matter? No? Okay, let's bring it back to council for discussion.
Well, my position is that, again, we go with the city manager's recommendations. He's negotiated the labor contracts, and he's come back with the various staffing responsibilities and levels that he feels he needs to fulfill his job. Therefore, I'm in full support of the motion.
Okay. Jim, do you have any comments?
I'm satisfied with the staff's recommendation.
Okay. I actually feel like there need to be some changes made to the staff resolutions. we've never done retroactive. I just think we need to keep with past practice. They really do need to be effective the date of adoption. I also think that we need to restore the performance levels required for merit increases. We've done it that way for years. Rolling Hills Estates does it that way. As it's written right now, maybe not you, but maybe somebody after you comes in and someone who's an average performer could get a 2% merit increase. I think people need to know what they're working towards. They need to know if I'm this, I get this. If I'm this, I get that. And I just think it's a better HR practice given my work experience. I do think the 1,000-hour sick leave cap for the PD management needs to be put in just for consistency's sake. And the one thing that gives me pause is when we talked about the director's salaries, we said we didn't want to align all the directors. And so I'm okay with the ranges that are in here. What makes me uncomfortable is the statement that states they will be aligned at the top, because I feel like that reduces flexibility. And yes, in a future amendment, we could change it, but if this is a 4-year contract, why are we linking them all to each other? Let's just say these are what the salaries are, and
well, if I could take a step back on that, just when we ran based on the direction, we added the 50% to the Public Works and Community Development. It came in above the finance director.
Well, see, I thought you were going to do the finance director too. I didn't think you were just.
I'm happy to.
But my point is, I just don't like the fact that the resolution says everyone's going to have the same top step.
Right. It just but
we don't know what the market's going to require.
Right. But how do we address that? Because I need to know what the salary range is to be able to recruit to. And so if we don't have these salary ranges, I can't post that.
I'm okay with the salary range. I just don't like it saying that what it states is into perpetuity.
I don't think it says that it doesn't specifically, they aligned because they came in within $150 a month of each other. I don't remember the exact numbers. So it made more sense to align them, but we're not aligning them. It's just, if it came in a lot farther apart, we wouldn't have done that. If we would like to extend the finance director salary range top end out using the same methodology, we can. It's not what my understanding was of the strategy of extending. So I think we both got to a place from it, but we got there in a different direction. I think full alignment of it would have been to align the low end of the Public Works and Community Development Director. We're not doing that.
Victoria?
Do you like the bumping up the adjusting the finance director? Does that kind of solve that concern for you?
My concern would really just be taking out the verbiage under 3.whatever it is, 3.4. I can't find it, and I'm scrolling here.
I agree with the not doing the retroactive. It's, this is effective when it's approved.
I support that as well. I don't think we should start a precedent of going backward.
Yeah, okay, so I think, are you going to be okay with that, Carrie?
Yes.
Okay. And the other was?
What about the performance bonus? It used to be if you were satisfactory, you got this. If you were above average, you got that. If you were exceptional, you got something else.
I think the way he's got it postulated is it provides flexibility and for him to use his judgment, or the managers to use their judgment based on performance.
Well, why wouldn't you just say that? I mean, when they do the performance, they're going to say, are you satisfactory, are you above average, are you exceptional?
But as I understand it, that doesn't lock in a given percentage. He could be satisfactory.
Historically, that's what
it was, but that is, I understand this is a change to that.
Yes, so let me just clarify that point, is that, so if I wrote my notes properly here, so merit increase 0 to 2% for satisfactory or better. So someone who performs just satisfactory may still get 0.
Correct.
That's right.
Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
But they also might get 2.
Correct.
Well,
It's up to the judgment of the manager.
No retroactive.
That's not how I see it typically done.
No, I hear what you're saying, but also with the band of 2%, it's hard to have too many bands in there.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, okay, satisfactory, above average, excellent. It's hard to have three measures within 2%. I mean, so each one's 0.75%. I mean,
Well, this is how Rolling Hills Estates does it. If you're satisfactory, it's 0. If you're above average, you get 1. If it's exceptional, you get 2. That's how they do it.
okay, so just 0, 1, 2. So say that again.
0, 1, 2.
No, but what were the?
0 for satisfactory, 1 for above average, 2 for exceptional. I figured that's where Kerry had gotten it from. But I
No.
guess he came up with it independently.
I had an independent thought. Mayor, if I may add, I listen, I don't want to argue from the dais, and I know, I know that when you're having these types of discussions, you take the win. But I want to add this in for the collective group. One of the issues with this is the way the last resolutions were written. I come in and I'm trying to figure out how to apply it, and it wasn't easy. You were locked into certain things. And I didn't like that. I'd like to be able to have some flexibility. We have one standard review document for City Hall, and then police has a different version of that. Theirs is a little more, I think, technical. And it doesn't align itself for satisfactory, above average, or superior, whatever it is. It doesn't work well. It needs to be updated. It's tough to work with. We're comparing directors to maintenance workers, and that doesn't work. So the idea and the intent behind this was to give the flexibility, and I think there should be some flexibility for the managers. You know, you might have somebody that's above average, but they've done something different. Maybe their stated job performance hasn't been great, but they've filled in somewhere else. I don't know, but with that flexibility is important, and I don't think it's appropriate to what that document says, because you can manipulate that document any way you want, then that equals 0, 1, or 2%. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
So completely subjective. Just completely subjective.
We will.
The way you write the review and the way you reward the performance. So
Yeah. That's just me.
Okay, so we've agreed on getting rid of the retroactive. I think we're agreeing on performance, or I'm sorry, merit, whatever it's
just the
being
0 to
fine as is. We're agreeing with the capping in putting in the sick leave cap of 1,000 hours that all the other contracts have. And it's 8:20. I'm not going to fall on my sword for whether or not we align the finance director, everyone else, so I'm fine with that.
Okay.
So that's for the resolutions. Any other comments on the resolutions? Okay. It's 8:20. I personally think that a deputy city manager for a city of our size doesn't make sense. I've said that before, I'll say it again. We seem to have this history where we create positions to fill what individuals want, and I just think it's bad organizational and business practice. We're getting rid of 2 positions for 1, so now we have less productivity. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't think we should do it, but I'm probably in the minority.
Well, this one for me falls kind of probably in the category of what David's going to say, is that this is one of those, I probably would agree. I'm like, geez, deputy city manager is kind of overkill. Certainly the package, the salary and all, range, that I think is overkill for our city, our side, but our city manager has said he needs this and he needs the support. And so this is a situation where I do think, while I don't love it, I'm trusting him, and then I've told them this, I trust you. Well, yes, but, I trust the city manager to, if this is what he needs, and he's saying that this is the support he needs, and this is, what we have isn't working. So I will trust that you're going to fill the position appropriately, and you're going to bring a person up to speed and productive and quickly, and because you're paying them, I think you're contemplating paying them a boatload of money, and if it's not right, I expect you to fix it quickly.
Okay, with that, do we have a motion on?
What is the sick leave change?
It's the 1,000-hour.
1,000-hour cap.
On management, police management. That's all it is.
Where's it missing? I see it in here.
It's like it's one of the last items. Give me a sec. I got a lot of papers in front of me.
I'm seeing it in the resolutions.
I'll tell you. Bear with me.
Was it missing in Resolution 2456, Section 7.3?
Whose resolution is that? If you look at the management and administration resolution, it's page 9 of that.
Yeah, this is the Section G, effective the date of adoption of this resolution, the maximum accrual of sick leave shall be 1,000 hours. That's the language that you want that's missing from, I believe.
Police management, it's 56.
So it was 56?
Yeah.
Okay. So with that addition to Section 6.3 to add Section G to Resolution R2456, and then I believe the other changes were in all three resolutions, R24, 54, 55, 56, changing Section 3.3A, changing the date July 1st, 2024 to October 8th, 2024.
Correct.
Okay.
So, was that the motion?
We have, yeah, right.
motion would be to adopt.
And that fixes the cell phone thing, too?
Yes. Yeah.
What's the cell phone?
Is that, we're going to remove
No cell phone allowance.
no cell phone allowance.
You can have a city-issued cell phone.
Those that were offered a cell phone allowance and/or city cell phone will only be offered a city cell phone.
Okay. So then I believe the motion is to adopt resolutions R2454, R2455, R2456 with the three changes to section, with the changes to section 3.3A in all three, the change to add section 6.3G, I believe, to add the 1,000-hour sick leave cap to resolution R2456, and then to
Section 3.5 of R2455 and
what section?
3.6 of R2454. It's actually, you know what, it's interesting. It's only R2455 is the only ones offered the option. So just remove the option to section 3.5 of R2455.
I thought it was in the police management.
It just looks like police manager just says they get a city cell phone.
No, it's 3.7.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's to delete in R2455 the language.
Oh, you're right. Oh, the chief of police.
So it shall read, a management administration employees shall each receive a city-issued cell phone.
Right.
Yes.
That's it, and then that same language for, you said 3.7 in...
The chief of police.
2456.
In 2456. Okay, so the motion was then to approve those, adopt those resolutions with the changes as detailed by myself and the city manager.
Who wants to make that motion?
I'll move it.
Okay, moved by Councilmember McGowan. Is there a second?
I can second.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem Lozey. Could we do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember McGowan?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruse?
Aye.
Councilmember Kemp's absent. Mayor Pro Tem Lozey?
Aye.
And Mayor Murdock?
You know, I support the resolutions. I don't support the deputy city manager, so I guess I have to be a no. I don't think I can do yes to some of it.
That motion was just for the resolutions, and
But the resolution includes the
Yeah,
deputy
resolution.
city
The
manager
creation
in
of the
it.
okay,
position.
so okay, that's fine.
Okay. Before we move,
I'm sorry, Mayor, can you restate your vote?
no.
Thank you.
Okay. Separately, I didn't see this in the staff report. We had talked about doing a class and comp study.
Good idea.
And this needs to be completed before the next round of negotiations, because POA and PSE is coming up, likely in January or February. And I think, you know, council needs to reach agreement on what those comparative cities are. And so I would do a motion. I would move that we direct the city manager to execute a class and comp study, including a council-approved set of cities to be completed by February 2025. And this would be all positions.
We're working towards that, for sure, yeah.
Okay, I'll second
It just
that.
wasn't in the staff report.
Yep,
so-
nope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion or just direction?
The intent was to put together an request for, not an RFP, but request for proposals, but not an RFP. And then select one and bring it to the council to.
RF little p?
Yeah,
You're going to
yeah.
bring a separate item forward.
Yeah, we were planning to bring a separate
Okay.
form. It's just we got to put that together, and then we got to get it out, we got to get it back. So we are working towards that. It's not something that was not happening. It's on the list.
Okay.
Okay, well, we have a motion and a second. I guess we will, and you think it'll meet the time? I know. You got a
I
new
sure
deputy
hope
city
so.
manager, so.
I certainly hope it meets the timeline, for sure.
Okay, then I withdraw my motion.
I understand the importance of it. I truly do.
Okay. It is 8:30. I'm going to suggest we take a 10-minute break. We'll be back at
Yippee.
8:40.
Let's get this show on the road.
Okay, it's 8:40. We are back from our break, and we are on agenda item number 11, the contract award for the PV Drive West tieback design project. I'm assuming that's you, Mr. Loriso.
Good evening again, Mayor, members of the council. This particular project has been on the CIP for a little while. The wall that is in question was originally constructed back in 2010. And this wall is on PV Drive West, just north of the intersection with Via Montemar and south of Paseo del Mar. So there's a little stretch in there that it's a straightaway where Mayor Pro Tem Lozzi, I think we were talking the other day, the bluffs, Bluff Cove. Anyway, I'm hoping that rings a bell to where. Anyway, this wall was constructed back in 2010, finished then, and in 2022 there were some concerns, or around that time there were some concerns about the wood lagging that was constructed along with the wall, that it was deteriorating. So the city hired GMU to go out and investigate, and made a determination. They provided council with 3 different recommended options of repair or mediation. Council went ahead and provided direction on which one to proceed with. Staff went ahead and put together an RFP for this work, and this work that we are looking to select NV5 for is the design of the repairs to the wall, not the construction, just the design part. Additionally, Luann with MV5 is here in the audience. She can answer any questions you may have as well.
Thank you. I have one question. So when I looked at the price quote in the bid, it showed that $50,000, or roughly 25% of the requested funds, are for, after the design is done, for the contractor to make any necessary clarifications on their PS&E and provide assistance for the RFP of the construction phase. Don't we typically have HR Green handle our RFP? So I'm wondering, are we over consulting on the construction phase RFP?
Well, we would really rely on the specialist when it comes to these types of projects. Yes, HR Green does prepare and manage the RFP process and will oversee everything, but we do rely on the technical expertise that is put together by the consultant that's selected.
Got it, thank you. Okay. Anyone else, questions? Okay, is there any public comment on this item? Nobody's raising their hand. All right, let's bring it back to council. Do I have a discussion? If not, do I have a motion?
Well, I would move that we, or was anyone else going to say anything? Oh, sorry. Let's see. I move that we adopt the resolution 2450, R2450, to award professional services agreement to NV5 for the design of the structural repairs, which is project number PW704-23, in an amount not to exceed $199,220. Approve additional expenditures not to exceed $20,000, which is 10% of the contract amount, and authorize the city manager to execute the contract documents in final form and format as approved by the city attorney.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Mayor Pro Tem Lozzi, second by Councilmember McGowan. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving right along. Number 12, let's talk about rejection of the storm drain master plan proposals. Thank you for sitting through all of that. I guess it's good, you're. Thank you. I guess it's you again, Steve.
Okay, just wanted to wait. So this item is considering the rejecting all proposals received for the storm drain master plan. So this project was added into the CIP in about 2022 at the suggestion of the city manager, based on not knowing what the storm drain system was like. The purpose of this project was to prepare a master plan to identify citywide system of storm drain and to develop a plan for the future improvements, kind of like the PMP, Pavement Management Program. After review of the proposals by a selection committee that we formed, the highest ranked firm's fee was opened, with the proposed fee approximately 50% higher than what was budgeted. Staff identified areas, subsequently, staff has identified areas of immediate concern related to storm damage within the storm drain system, and is suggesting that that be considered by council for future projects if this is considered to be rejected. That's my presentation, and I'm here for any questions.
I have a couple questions. What were the proposals that came in? Was it for storm or sanitary sewer?
This was for storm drain. The sanitary sewer one was started by SOMAS about 2 months ago, but this was just for storm drains.
This is running the cameras through the system and understanding the condition of the infrastructure. Is that correct?
Well, this particular part, or this particular project, does not involve CCTV of the storm drain systems. The purpose of doing this is to develop basically what the city has, developing hotspots where there's flooding, where we don't have enough capacity, and then figuring out, well, as well as the age of the system, then figuring out where things should be videoed. Because if we were to just video the entire system, it would be about $750,000 based on what some of the quotes we've been receiving.
I understand the idea of utilizing the funds for more immediate needs and short-term needs, but what I'm focused on is the understanding the long-range impact to the community and having a plan that will address the needs going into the future. And what we be doing, if I understand this correctly, is kicking that can down the road and focusing in on the $500,000 or whatever we're talking about on repairs that are immediately required.
Correct.
So in your professional judgment, is this something that we need to keep on the horizon as far as one of the capital needs of our community as we look forward the next 4, 5, 10 years?
Yes, absolutely.
And if I understand you correctly, the numbers that we need to be building into our thought process or the CIP plan and so forth into some future years are more significant dollars than we had anticipated in the past.
That's correct.
So it's not all good news, but...
No, and doing this plan, you're right. It just like the other plans that you've authorized, the sewer master plan, that will help guide you for the next 10 years and beyond. The storm drain system needs that as well, but with the cost that it was being provided, we wanted to provide that option to council to see how best to address this.
Well, I understand that, and I think that's appropriate. But what I also want to make sure that we build into our cash flow requirements the need to do this kind of study in the not too far distant future, because we don't know what additional problems we're going to be faced with, and we don't have the cash available. We've got to start figuring out how we're going to raise that cash.
And if I may, as a suggestion too, that we will keep this on the CIP. It's a matter of just, we will have to revisit it and identify the correct or an increased cost for it based on what we've heard.
Well, I like keeping it on the CIP. That's great. And I also like the idea of updating it with your best judgment as to what the dollars are going to be required to do the study whenever it is done, assuming $24. Does that make any sense?
Understood, yeah.
And I think part of it, too, it sounds like, is making sure we're clear on what the study's going to be, right? from what I'm hearing from you, Steve, is we're not video CCTVing everything. We will figure out what it is, what the system is, figure out where we need to do targeted things, but just making sure that we're all kind of clear on what's going to happen.
Madam Mayor, may I add just something to that about the CCTV?
Yes.
The whole point of this, there is this thought that doing the CCTV just solves all the problems. It doesn't. It just tells you where the issues are where the pipe needs to be fixed. That doesn't tell you if your system is adequate. That just says, okay, there's a failure there, there's a failure there, this one, that pipe is going bad. The whole system needs to be analyzed, and the CCTV is just a very, very small component.
Just like for the sewers, right?
Exactly.
That's part of what they're doing. They're doing kind of load testing and all
Correct.
of that.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, I think there was a past city manager who talked about how we need to CCTV all of this, and I think that just kind of stuck in everyone's brain. And
What I would encourage you to do in your CIP analysis is, if there are various levels or milestones that we need to consider, that they be articulated and take advantage of the knowledge that we have received from these various proposals.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Because if I hear you correctly, we may need to put up $750,000 in today's dollars in there at some point in time, but that's only one piece of a multi-step process.
Yeah, correct.
And we've got to start thinking longer term, and what the cash flow requirements are going to be, or we're going to have surprises that we can't fund.
Well, we're already
just
having
like the ones now.
Yeah, and you have to realize too that a lot of the system was built by the county back in maybe the 50s and the 60s, and a lot of corrugated metal pipe was used, and that it's not there anymore.
No.
So.
So how long do you think we can go before we really need to do the storm drain master plan? It's like 1 or 2 years, 5 years?
I think as soon as you can budget. The intent really was to get this done.
Yes.
Because that will help you. The CCTV, again, was just a very small component, and even if you didn't do that, you still need to do the program itself, the master plan. Because we're finding issues throughout the city that we didn't know there was a flooding issue there. And the only way we're going to find that stuff out is a 100-year storm, similar to what we had back in February, or a master plan. And there's costs involved with each part of that, whether it's a claim or the preparation of a master plan. So, I'm
So I
sorry.
guess I'm kind of sorry, going back to maybe your original point. I mean, is this a mistake to abandon the proposals on the master plan, and should we just suck it up and figure out a way to fund the master plan?
Well, I think we need to hear more about the emergency needs of the $500,000 or whatever it is now. But I agree with you, Victoria, that we cannot prolong this. And if we can get it started, the sooner we get it done, the better. I am concerned, though, about what these other emergency repairs are that I want to talk about that.
Yeah, because I guess I'm feeling like, okay, here, let's take that money and let's put it toward these repairs that we know we need to. It's like, okay, well, what repairs? What are you talking about? And then if you weigh the two, and I'll say, well, okay, do I really need those repairs critical today, or am I better off to come up with the extra funding for the master plan?
Well, it's an excellent question, and I don't have the answer, but...
Yeah. What's the answer, boys, men, gentlemen? Sorry.
I want to clarify. I think Steve, help me, correct me if I'm wrong, is the staff recommendation to reject the proposals was initially based on the costs that came in and a disconnect on CCTV. There was a...
That's correct.
And I heard the mayor even say it was kind of in our head, and so there was some concern there. As that was coming forward, I was brought out to a location on the border, what do you guys call it?
Boundary trail.
Yeah, the bridle trail, yeah.
It's massively washed out there. So much so that I'm concerned when I saw it. I think some of you might have seen some pictures, but you have to see it for yourself.
I've been there.
Yeah, it's bad, and it needs to be addressed probably yesterday. None of us even knew about it. I don't really know where it was in the city hall's look. There's a street, I won't name it, that's having a big problem right now.
Yep.
There's
Sewer problem?
no, it's a
Storm drain.
storm drain problem.
Storm drain, okay.
There's a couple more that got caution tape around it that I saw. I'm like, what's that? I'm like, why aren't we addressing that? So, and then we have what happened in Lunada Bay during the storm. So those are the areas that so it was kind of at the same time. It was like, well, we're going to reject this, and we just sort of felt like this money could be better spent on some of these big concerns. Knowing we still
Have you
to do this down
scoped those out and priced those out?
No, this is 2 weeks old for us.
So let's see.
I was out there 2 weeks ago.
You know, I don't have a major concern about maybe deferring it if we need to clean up and get a better understanding of these bids, but I think it needs to be in the next fiscal year's plan that we address and start thinking more prospectively. Right now, we've got so many issues going on in the city, and I don't want another Malaga Cove water situation to raise its ugly head that we're not prepared for.
The three that I mentioned just now, and we really haven't even sat down and identified or listed them or costed them out, from my non-engineer's perspective, are big and need to be addressed.
I'm not an engineer too, but I see it as big.
Yeah.
And I play one on TV, and it's big.
Oh, my God.
So I have a question about kind of our overall RFP process, because this has come up a couple of times, and I still need to look at that meeting. I forgot that I needed to look at that meeting we talked about. But, you know, in the original staff report, there was a statement that you were, like, it was talking about the lowest cost responsible bid. And then in the revised staff report, it talks about the highest ranked firm and the cost associated with that. And that made me think that those were two different firms, which may be. But my recollection was, we've had conversations in the past about whether or not, kind of what the process is when you're allowed to open the bids, whether cost is part of the evaluation criteria. Not that I would go only with lowest cost, because if they don't do a good job. But have we made any modifications to our RFP process and kind of rating criteria that allow us to open all bids and put that into as part of the evaluation?
Yeah, actually with the city attorney's help.
Okay, great. Awesome.
Stay over there, Trevor. You're
Take the
okay.
win. Take the win. Move on. Take the win. Take the win and move
Okay.
on.
I just wanted to clarify, though, there's two different things. There's the professional services process, the request for proposals, and then there's the request for bids, RFBs. The request for proposals for professional services, that is not done based on fee. It is the process, and Trevor's helped us add some language within the current RFPs that we have going out to allow us more flexibility.
Okay.
The contracts that we award for construction, the RFBs, those are always to the lowest responsible.
Right. I understand that. The other thing that I have is, I thought I heard you say that if we CCTV the entire storm drain system, that would be $750,000. Is that on top of the master plan? I'm just trying to make.
Yes.
So that would be on top of? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. And then my last question is, because I read in the staff report, you talk about these immediate needs and coming back to council. What's the timeline? When do you think you'll have your arms around what that list is and what's needed, and kind of a prioritization of the order of attack?
I don't have an exact time frame on that, but what I will share with you is that there are certain locations we already have pavement dips, not sinkholes or failures, but there's dips. And we know that there's storm drains in those areas. And so we are working to have those areas videoed because we want to see what the issue is there. Additionally, we don't have plans for every single location. So we don't know what kind of what pipe we're dealing with, what type, what size. So we're trying to do that first. So that is likely to start probably in the next month because we've been researching some quotes with different vendors on that. So once we get that stuff put together, and we're trying to develop cost estimates now for the Torrance Boundary Trail, as well as other items that we have, Lunata Bay that you were talking about. So
Well, that's what I was going to say. So for the ones that you know you need to work on, you're already starting to develop those, and then the ones where you're like, oh, that looks a little sketch, you've got a plan to at least investigate and determine if there's...
Can you just list out what those 3 or 4 areas are?
Via Las Vegas is the one that stands out in my mind because that one, in fact, our public works inspector, he's bugging me 3 or 4 times about it, saying, we've got to do something, we've got to do something. And
This is the one Kerry was saying that he visited?
That was on the Torrance Boundary Trail, actually.
That's the boundary. Oh, what's this other one?
Via Las Vegas.
Oh, Vegas.
Like in front of the school?
Actually, I think it's just as you're going towards the trail. I could be wrong. It's just because I've seen so many different areas. Another one that we actually are working into the current pavement rehab project is over here on PB Drive West, where we've noticed that you're driving in the towards the west, and there's a big dip there, and we've identified that there is likely a storm drain line over there. The other areas I could identify, I just don't have them readily available, but we do have 5 or 6 locations that we're going to be videoing.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful, Kerry, if you shared those 5 or 6 locations with the council, just so we have an awareness of where these potential trouble spots are.
Well, I think one of them is the storm drain at Paseo Lunado, right, where we have to kind of redirect, because, I mean, rains are coming.
But didn't you already do that one? Paseo Lunado, didn't we fix that? Oh, I thought we fixed it.
That's the big block.
So I guess for me, this, I feel like we're talking about 2 different things. We're talking about the storm drain master plan, and then we're talking about lots of repairs that need to happen. And you're storm drain repairs that need to happen. And that's 2 different things. And so I hesitate. I guess I would rather see us, extend the timeline of this RFP than reject the RFP, reject the proposals now, 6 months from now say, oh yeah, hey, now we're ready to do it, and, and have to do the whole, we struggle with people, keep it live, don't reject it, because if you come back with a list and you say, oh my gosh, these things absolutely must need to be done, and that's $500,000, and it's going to be $675 or $700 to do the master plan, I think you're assuming that I want to divert's not the right, reassign my master plan money into my repairs when I might want to do both of those things and redeploy money from somewhere else, right? I mean, it's all prioritizations. And so I feel like I am flying a little blindly by saying, okay, yeah, let's reassign this money when I don't know what I'm reassigning it to, and I don't know what the value of that is, and I don't know what the priorities of that versus other things on our CIP list. So can we get more information before we outright, and the thing is, we struggle to get good, we issue RFP, your staff report says we issued the RFP, and we kept it open for a month, and we got 4 good proposals, and we vetted them all, and then we went forward with 2 of them, and they were both great, and but okay, they're expensive. Well, okay, when has anything ever come in less than what we were expecting?
Let me chime in.
I don't know.
Because I tend to like where you're headed. Is there a way that we can keep these proposals alive, at least for a few months, while we get a better understanding of what these 5 or 6 emergency situations are? Maybe what we want to try to do is stay on plan to do the master scoping plan, but maybe we can't start it until next fiscal year. But going through the RFP process again and spending all that money over is ridiculous.
Plus, why would good bidders come back and bid again when they put all the work into preparing a proposal and we were like, oh, sorry, it's more than we thought?
We may need to make a decision about one of the providers, but we say we don't want to commence work until X date.
Yeah, I don't.
So, I'm sorry.
No, please.
Okay. We did reach out to the proposers to ask if we can extend their proposals, because typically it's 90 days, and they all agreed to extend it for an additional 90 days. So
What does that take you to?
that takes us to, I think, the end of November.
Oh, that's not very
That 180?
That was our,
Just not
what?
getting it?
No, that can't be right.
When did we get these proposals?
Yeah,
So then we would already be out the date.
No, yeah, that can't be right.
July 21st.
So in May, you put out the RFP, you kept it out there for a month. Yeah, well, ask them for the end of March, don't you think? Gives
Well,
us 4 months to pull ourselves together here and figure out what our trade-offs are.
We need till the spring. I agree with you, Victoria, 100%. But I'm concerned that you say that they agreed to extend it a second 90 days, and that would take us to the end of November. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, I just need to verify.
Because that
would be
why
180
are we
days, and
just
it
now
hasn't
hearing
been
about this?
180 days since you issued it.
I'm sorry?
My question is, if we receive these proposals 90 or 120 days ago, why are we just now hearing about them?
Because we did go through the process of doing the reviews. We got 4 proposals. That was a big deal for us.
vetted, yeah.
Going through the review, we did meet with the 2 highest ranked firms. And then we really went back and forth on this and the fact that the cost was so high.
Well, I guess if November is the drop dead date, I would at least entertain the question, can you go back and get them to extend that to March? It may require some kind of it's that drink again, that it may require a COLA or some kind of a cost increase. But, because if a bidder they locked in funds based upon a given price point.
And just to be honest, I think it will be tough to have them keep that, because then if they start in March, that's 9 months of work that they've got in front of them. Okay. I will reach out to all 4 of them.
Just a couple, a couple months, just something so we can you can scope out the magnitude of what. So the other thing is you say, okay, I'm going to redeploy this money from, $450,000 from here to there, and then if you come back with $1.5 million worth of projects, I'm like, well, I can't do that either. So, yeah, I think we have to understand the scope.
I'm sorry, Carrie, if I can just say some. You will have more than $1.5 million worth of storm drain fixes.
Then what is the point of taking 450? I mean, that's my point. We're talking about 2 different things here. And I think we're cutting off our nose to spite our face by rejecting the master plan, because we need that, and we need to do these repairs. So, yeah, see, you kind of, thanks for making that point, because you're almost making it sound like, oh, well, there's $450 for the master plan, but I have $450 in repairs, so we'd be better off to spend the $450 in repairs. And just what you were listing, I'm like, there's no way that's $450. I wouldn't think. Yeah, I'm sorry. I need more information before I reject work that people in good faith presented to us. Sorry, I can't.
It's. Let's clarify one thing.
Wait, did I ask for public comment on this? Does anybody want to weigh in? No, okay.
You all look riveted. Come on.
So,
I think what we really need to do here is Steve needs to go back to the vendors, the 2 highest, and find out whether November is the drop dead date or whatever, and also at the same time, at least give us some ballpark, better definition of these hot projects that need to be addressed, because maybe, I hate to say it, and it's all going to be dependent upon raising incremental revenue, but we may have to utilize some of our reserves to protect ourselves from more fiscal concerns.
We might.
If I may, and I think,
Please.
I think the direction's pretty clear. Lisa, is it to you? Yes, say yes.
Yes, yeah, sorry. Yes, I didn't know that was a question to me.
But just to be very clear, the recommendation to reject these proposals is independent of
Yes.
finding these new things. I know.
Say that again, say it
it's-
again.
Our recommendation to reject these proposals are independent. These bids are being rejected based on there's not enough money budgeted in the CIP for what's come in.
And I'm sorry, there was that misconception that maybe was presented that we were just going to CCTV the system, and I needed to get out there that was not what was in the CIP document.
Correct. Are they the master plan proposal, I'm sorry, Don, for the master plan proposals, that sounds like they came in around 675-ish. But those are still valid and valid master plans, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you consider them to be good proposals?
Yes.
And do you think you
That work
could
will
do
help
any
us.
better? Like, on a price standpoint? I mean, why?
No.
So then why would we?
Why would we reject them?
If we don't think we're going to be able to get it done for $450, then we just need to pull up our pants?
You're rejecting them based on what was budgeted. And
Okay, but what we're saying is if we need the work done, let me come up with another
we hear that.
225.
We hear that.
Okay.
We hear that. I just want to make it very clear. It is unrelated to that we found some other problems. And I want the council to understand we have to address some of these
That's
problems.
what I'm saying, this
Very
is
clear,
two separate
very clear.
things.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's clear, and we can probably get some answers and come back quickly.
Yes, yes.
Okay, we got it.
And those 4 or 5 projects, you may want to prioritize the ones that are, you would do first, second, and third.
Yep,
Understood.
yep.
All right. Let's move on. Item number 13.
Do we get the motion to
13?
reject all bids?
We're not.
We're not doing that. We're not rejecting.
They're coming back to us.
We're punting.
Number,
So we're continuing this to the next meeting?
We can do it
Well, the direct staff to consider other, never mind, I'll be quiet.
We are,
This item is not coming back to us in this form. The
Yeah.
2 items are bifurcated.
yeah. They want us to ask for an extension of the master plan and to bring back a consideration of approving the master plan. So we can continue the item, or we can,
well, continuing is, you're continuing the
rejection
proposal to
concept.
rejection. That's
Yeah,
not
aren't we
what we
rejecting
want
the
to
bids
do.
and we're bringing back a different?
no.
No.
No, we don't want to reject the bids yet.
Okay, so then let's continue it.
There's just no action.
We should continue the item if we set this to consider the bids, right? So we have,
I'm with you.
okay,
So the council did not necessarily want to reject the bids tonight. We have we already have a built-in extension till the end of November that these bids are good. We're going to ask for a little bit more time, but they would like this to bring back consideration of approval, and I would assume a money plan to pay for those.
okay.
And
So
separately,
Well, which was in the item, that was number 2 of your recommendation, direct staff to consider other drainage projects with immediate need of remedy.
So
So
we
we're
have
giving you
time.
that direction.
we have time before these bids are going to
Yes,
expire?
yes.
Okay, then we can just continue it to a date uncertain.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
all
Yes.
right, so we are continuing to a date uncertain. All right. Our last numbered item for the evening is number 13, an update on the Malaga Cove water intrusion situation.
Steve's going to start.
Tonight's Steve night.
Yes. I'd like to think every night was Steve night, but.
Okay.
Good evening again. This is going to be a continuing event that we'll be having a discussion on, likely every council meeting. Just to present the latest update on this, to go back in time, there was a sinkhole that occurred on September 6th in the Malaga Lane alley portion. Staff worked to secure the area, and then working in conjunction with Geosyntec, that we've been working with them a lot on this area. They're familiar with the groundwater issues. We brought them out here to do some additional ground penetrating radar of that Malaga Lane area. When we did the examination of the sinkhole, we also identified additional subsurface voids within Malaga Lane, and the recommendation is to basically address all 6 of these locations as soon as possible. They're all fairly close to the surface, they just haven't broken through yet. We've worked to obtain quotes to get the repair of the sinkhole and the voids, and if council is progressing with the rest of the information that City Manager Kalman is going to provide, we can have this work scheduled for later this week. Additionally, we do have Geosyntec representing, we have representation from Geosyntec in the audience that could also talk to the things that were found. Tamika, would you be able to bring up that other one there? Yes. My apologies, I meant to bring all this stuff up. So this first one here, this is the area of the subsurface void. So the ground penetrating radar was additionally done between Villa Chico and I think it was about 400 feet to the west. And in that area, we found that there was the identification of 6 additional areas. Could you go on to the next page, please? So the ground penetrating radar that was done, it's kind of difficult to see because there's so many different colors here, but there are 6 locations that were determined to have subsurface voids within approximately 4 feet of the surface. Our sinkhole that was identified, you can see is very close to should be backfilled ASAP. And then the next page is where, if you'd like to have more information about, we have Jonas from Geosyntec that could provide additional information. But this was the ground penetrating radar that goes from between 2 and 3 feet, 4 and 5 feet, and then 10 and 11 feet. And one thing I wanted to point out, not that it's exact, but the lower one there, you can see the darker areas where we believe that's where the
French drain.
Yes, is located. But it's kind of interesting that there are certain areas that are blue, like something happened there. But anyway, so the recommendation is for us to go out there and take care of these voids. Toot sweet.
I have a question on this picture. So if the bottom picture is where the pipe is, and I think somewhere in the staff report you had talked about there being a blockage, where would that blockage be on there? Is it where that blue break is, or is it, you know?
Sorry, I was looking for the laser pointer, but the blockage is...
Go up and try to point. Can you point?
Maybe get up there and point.
Oh, okay. The blockage that was identified is about 26 feet in from Villa Chico. So it's somewhere right around in this area here, because you can see that the length of this here is 200 feet, so I would say, not 400, but this is 200 feet. So if you're talking about 20 feet or so, it probably should extend somewhere back in here. But again, this, as you can hear from Geosyntec, that this is not an exact science, but that's where the blockage is, about 26 feet in.
The pipe's 200 feet?
Oh, the pipe itself goes, I think it's about 450 feet.
Oh, okay.
It continues further on. The purpose of this ground penetrating radar was not to determine the pipe condition, it was more to determine what's happening below grade there.
Right. So my question is, when we did the first round of ground penetrating radar, I'm sorry, were you done with your presentation?
Yes.
Okay. When we did the first round of ground penetrating radar, there were 2 objectives of that. One was to identify potential voids or cavities, and the other was to identify utilities. So if we scanned this same area 9 months ago, in probably January, we were told there were no voids, and now there are voids. So my question is, were these not picked up the first time, or are things changing so quickly that data from 9 months ago is no longer valid?
I'd actually like to turn that over to Jonas, if you wouldn't mind, to describe, because he's been here the whole time with that.
Okay.
Presenting to council.
Welcome, Jonas.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the chance to come present this information. Essentially, what we're doing with this analysis is we're looking at anomalies in density variations. This is not an intrusive method. It's meant to be a scan of the area, and it's relying on correlations. Like, if you have this level of density that is detected, and that's what you see in these color variation, then this is the interpreted status of that layer. You do see that French drain at that depth. It is not necessarily picking it as a pipe, it's picking it as material with different density than the surrounding area, right? Same thing for those surface anomalies. It's looking at the density of the surrounding areas and comparing it with the density that is reading in these particular areas. The initial scan that was done in that January, February timeframe of this year did show anomalies on the surface. It was presented in the March report that was provided to the city. However, the anomalies that were detected at that time, they were not interpreted to be close to the surface to be ready to break. Essentially, they were just saying, these are the anomalies that we see in these areas, but without an exact physical samples, we couldn't correlate them with that level of accuracy. Now we have that sinkhole that developed along Malaga Lane. We came out and rescanned and recalibrated the readings based on the sinkhole that is manifested on the surface, and reissued these figures that you see that highlights the depth and the locations. And we identify these 5 locations along Malaga Lane that we believe that represent as sinkholes that have not breached to the surface, that are between 2 to 4 feet in depth. Now, there is a lot of water moving through here, and we have reason to believe that there is soil that is moving, as we have seen with the opening of the sinkhole. If these sinkholes were, or these anomalies were at slightly at depth below the detection limit, and the situation is evolving with the amount of water that is moving through it, the fine contents that is moving with the water, we can see them propagating to the surface. Hopefully that answers some of the questions that the council members have.
Thank you. Other questions from council?
So sorry, in the staff report, I guess, Steve question, I guess. I'm sorry. So go over what you're asking for again, because I thought that this was just an update item, but it sounds like you're actually asking us to approve something.
I'm going to jump in here.
Oh, sorry.
This
Okay.
is the tag team, the Steve and Carrie
Thank you.
team show. There's going to be a standard agenda, standing agenda item on this topic at council request direction and staff concurrence to provide progress reports on what we're doing. So if the council recalls, a working group of representatives of that area was put together. There's 5 or 6 people. We held our first meeting. Steve and I and Trevor attended to kind of work out a game plan on how to address this area. Some of the immediate things are in the staff report that came out of that the Malaga Manor area is working towards installing a storm drain system to capture that water on what was affectionately named Sandbag Lane, so we could get rid of the sandbags over there. And then on the sort of this area where the sinkhole and voids are, there's that failing storm drain or French drain that you talked about, we're meeting with somebody tomorrow to take a look at it, to consider try to run another camera through using some different technology to see where that is. And there's been some talk of newer technology that might be able to fix that drain, but we're not there yet. Our most immediate thing we want to do is backfill these voids and the sinkhole. So what the action that's being asked of the council tonight is declaring a local emergency to allow me sort of the flexibility and timing of being able to do this. We've been trying to get quotes on this for a couple of weeks. We finally got one quote, and what did it come in at?
$36,000.
$36,000. We did write into the local emergency up to $100,000. There's coordination efforts. There's working with Geosyntec. It will require us to constantly come back and give updates. Trevor, if you want to fill in anything of that. But, you know, I got an email from a resident today. When are you going to fix this? And if we can move forward tonight, we can, as Steve said, we can sign the agreement, move forward, and if there's any additional expenses, I'm not hamstrung and frozen from doing that. So get that road back up and protected.
I have a question for, I don't know if it's Steve or Carrie. In the Malaga Manor write-up, you indicate, I'm reading from your document, is considering the construction of a new French drain and storm tile drain that would capture the water and that leaves Malaga. Is that really going to be a French drain, or is that, because that would have holes in it, and if it's going to tie into some other drainage, help explain that to me.
Yeah, so interestingly, we found out recently that there was a private French drain installed around that 2545 Via Campesina, or Malaga Manor, that comes from Via Campesina, drains through the side in between two properties, and then out to Sandbag Lane.
Sandbag Lane.
Yeah. And so that's been there for quite some time, unaware of. And so they're looking at replacing that or repairing that on their end, and then a combination of us working with them, putting an inlet in that alley, and then a storm drain down to Tejon Place.
Okay, so I was confused with the French drain at the top up there, and that was why I'm asking the question.
That was completely new, but yes, a French drain, because there is so much groundwater that they've been aware of for decades that they've had one in place.
That's at the Malaga Manor?
Yes. Yeah, and Tamika, if you could go back to the first image, I can kind of point out a little bit better too.
We need more nicknames.
So this here's 2545 Via Campesina. And I'm speculating on the exact dimensions, but we were told that there is a French drain that comes around here and goes through in between the two buildings. And right now, if you were to look out there, you can see that water does drain through this curve and then down.
So that French drain is just dropping water between the two buildings?
Correct.
Into the earth?
Through the curb and out into
through the curb.
Yeah. Did that answer the question? I didn't mean to elude the...
Well, it helps explain, but I was confused as to what the heck was going on with that comment. I'd never heard about a French drain up there.
We learned about it Wednesday.
Yeah, that was surprising. So,
as far as the emergency declaration, I fully support that. I think we need to give Carrie all the support that we can to deal with this situation, and I have no problem with keeping a $100,000 number, and with the idea that if he can manage it to a lower number, he will.
Before we start deliberating, is there any public comment on this? Yes, would you please state your name for the record and for the minutes?
Thank you very much. Sylvia Doctorman, 2545 Via Campesina, the Malaga Cove Manor. I just want to clarify one point. The French drains that have been on our property for many years, this is the first time, starting last April, after those heavy rains in 2023, the first time we've had this passive water flowing through those drains continuously. We've had the drains for many years. There was some water intrusion, but not anything like this, nothing in the garage. The water is also coming into our garage and flowing out of our garage down into Sandbag Lane. So I just wanted to clarify that small point for everyone's information.
I have a clarification question for you. So when I drive up Sandbag Lane, in the curve.
You know what I think of that name? It's
We're going to have Anthony make a sign.
There's a hole in the curb that the water's coming out from. Is that where the French drain is draining? No, well, you look at the building, and then the curb has a hole, and then there's a pipe inside the hole, and that's where the water's coming from that then drains down. Is that coming from the French drain, or is that
That's the end of the French drain that you see there coming out of the curb.
Thank you.
And so that water comes out there, and then you'll see the smaller stream coming out of our garage, right next to it.
Okay, I'll have to check that out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak on this item? Are you Ms. Padilla? Okay. Lucy Padilla for the city clerk.
Padilla. Yes, last time Geocentric was out here, I believe it was last month or the month before, doing a presentation, I thought that they were going to survey a wider range to cover that water concern. And it seems like, I'm sure you're very well aware and have very sound judgment that, concerning the other areas neighboring you with all those current events, that you would want to give your residents a peace of mind and try to do as much as you could for them. So that's all.
Thank you. Do we know when, Steve, did you say when that resistivity second study is going to, oh yeah, you did. You said it was going to be October 21st.
Yes, starting the week of the 21st. Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, great. Any other public comment? All right, let's bring it back to council for discussion. I think we heard from you, David, that you're supportive of the $100,000 and the emergency declaration.
I'd like to hear from Victoria first.
She said yeah.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, no, I'm probably,
Okay, so is that the only thing that you're asking for? All right, so can I have a motion then?
I'll move that we declare a local emergency and authorize staff to spend up to $100,000 as needed to remediate the sinkholes along Malaga Lane.
That includes the authorization of the proclamation that was attached?
Yes.
Okay.
We have to do a proclamation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that also includes that, yes.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I can second.
Okay. Motion by Councilmember McGowan, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Lozey. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Look at that, 9:34, and look at all the business we've gotten through today. So now we are at council member comments and tentative agenda items.
A little light on the sheet.
What'd you say?
I'm just looking at the sheet. It's a little.
Yeah, it's a little, yeah.
But we'll get
That's
to
okay, we'll fill it.
Oh, I know.
Don't worry.
You will.
All right, who wants to give a report out? Anyone? Oh, I'll report out that I attended my first and likely last SBCG COG board meeting in September. And
No. I thought you said SBGC. I was like,
I probably did. I probably did.
Where'd she go?
So it was.
Gotcha. For me,
interesting
thank
meeting.
you. I
subbed
appreciate
for the
it.
Mayor Pro Tem. Anyone else got anything?
No.
Anybody have any tentative agenda items?
I have something, though.
You have something?
Well,
Yes, I know you do.
Oh, okay.
All right, so no tentative agenda items?
No.
We'll leave that up to the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem to work with the city manager on. At some point, we'll figure out when, since I am in jury duty.
So.
Take it away, sir.
Very briefly, I'll just say it has been an honor. It's an open secret that I am moving at the end of next week to Austin, Texas. It's been a pleasure. I've been volunteering with the city for 7 years. First as the chair of the Technology Advisory Committee, then on the Planning Commission, and then as a city council member and mayor. You know, I used to be the mayor. I was telling Dawn I'm going to be saying that for the rest of my life. Anyway, it was with a heavy heart that I delivered to you, Mayor, my resignation effective at 11:59 p.m. on October 17th. The next day, I become a resident of Travis County in the great state of Texas.
Is this like being served? Do I have
Rip it up, rip it up, rip it up!
Run.
You've been served.
And anyway, it's been a pleasure working with you and with all of you, and all of you guys too. Thank you so much. It's been really great, and I wish you all the best of luck. It's a beautiful city, and I'm sure you guys will all keep it that way. So,
Well, you will be sorely, sorely missed. I told him I was going to try and drag this meeting out as long as I could.
did a great job.
I tried, but yet we're still going to be done at a reasonable time. But it has been an absolute pleasure knowing you as a colleague and as a friend. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to drive down that part of PV Drive West anymore.
Jim, I want to wish you all the best in your new responsibilities down in Austin, but if I'm a betting person, we're going to see you come back to the West Coast at some point in the future, and hopefully it'll be back to Palos Verde Estates.
Right, yep. So when I was mayor, before Jim was mayor, and Jim and I were partners in crime, as he was mayor pro tem, and I just really enjoyed that year getting to know you better and just working more closely, and absolutely wish all the best to you and your family. I would have to bet with David. I think you'll be back someday, but let's see.
we'll see. I'll tell you this. So I was born in Texas, and this is the 4th time in my life that I will live in Texas.
Well, people leave it for a reason.
And I have lived in California 3 times, so if I'm going to keep it even, I got to come back. But
There you go. Very good. Well, all the best to you.
And your employer is based here.
Yeah, they are. They most certainly are, yeah. So, all right.
All right, with that, I adjourn the meeting at 9:38 p.m.